Good evening and welcome to this Thursday, September 22nd meeting of the Finance Committee. Tonight we'll be following the hybrid model. We'll have participation both through Zoom and in person. This evening we'll be following the published and posted agenda. First on our agenda this evening is approval of minutes of September 15th, 2022. Has everyone had a chance to review them?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Make a motion.
And in Zoom, Anita, have you had a chance to review them? I see John's there too.
Yes.
Okay.
John T.
All right. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of September 15, 2022 as presented.
I second it.
Any discussion?
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moving right along, next on our agenda this evening is a review and discussion of Article 10, the School Department Professional Support Personnel. And I believe with us this evening we have Kathy Peluso and Kathleen Lopez and other members of the union as well.
Thank you, Finance Committee,
Thank
for
you.
taking the time to hear our presentation. My name is Kathy Peluso, and I'm a Chelmsford Federation of Teachers Vice President for Support Staff. I'm also a paraprofessional at the Chelmsford High School for 14 years. We are asking the Finance Committee to approve a town warrant so that we may present our request at town meeting. We are hoping for a vote to increase the school budget by $250,000. This money is intended to be allocated to increase support staff wages. Currently, we are not competitive with surrounding towns and have not been able to fill the much-needed paraprofessional and ABA paraprofessional roles. The inability to fill these positions leaves our students without the small group-based and individualized support and attention they need to succeed. Our presentation tonight will compare Chelmsford support staff salaries to surrounding towns. Our low salaries negatively impact the ability to attract and retain qualified support staff. Our contract negotiations have also stalled as a result of a salary disagreement, and for the first time we are entering the mediation stage. It is our desire that by requesting and receiving this additional funding, we will be able to finalize a 3-year support staff contract that offers a competitive salary. We are hoping to fill the 30 vacant support staff positions, provide every student with the support they require to succeed, and avoid any additional legal costs to the taxpayers. Whenever a contract negotiation stalls, there are legal costs involved. You may wonder why we do not seek higher wages in a different town. The support staff in Chelmsford are dedicated to their special education students in this town. The vast majority of our members are Chelmsford residents. This is our town, and we want every student to receive the support they require to succeed. We recognize the school department budget is the largest budget in the town. Unfortunately, the support staff have not been seen as a priority to fund appropriately for almost a decade. The paraprofessionals and ABA paraprofessionals are the people who work side by side with students, helping them achieve success. We ask that you support us in our endeavor to earn a fair and competitive wage. Thank you for your time, and Kathleen Lopez will be sharing our presentation.
Hi, thank you for hearing us this evening. Again, my name is Kathleen Lopez. I'm a paraprofessional at South Row Elementary of 7 years. Like Kathy had said, our goal tonight is to obtain an additional $250,000 for the school district's budget. This is only 0.37037% of an increase. The reason for this is for 4 reasons. 1, we have 23 vacant positions that do not fulfill the duties set forth in various federal and state statutes. We also know that salary is the #1 reason why we cannot fill this position, because we are lacking in competitiveness with our surrounding towns and DESE comparable towns. It will allow for the finalization of our 3-year contract and thus avoid any additional costs to the Chelmsford taxpayer. We had mentioned some federal statutes. There are 4 of those. The IDEA Act, the Individual with Disabilities. From that is the individual education plan that school districts must set up for any student with a disability. The No Child Left Behind Act, which was succeeded by the ESSA in 2015, And the way Massachusetts fulfills all of these is through Title I funding, and Chelmsford is a Title I school, which means all of our staff need to be highly qualified, obtaining associate or a bachelor's degree. I'll give you a second. This is just, Kathy had mentioned the paraprofessional and the ABA paraprofessional. But we also have secretaries and clerks and our recess aides who are vital to the functioning of our school. We work hand in hand with our students. These are students who have disabilities, who some have very high needs disabilities, and we are with them every day, all day. We know them inside and out. Taken from our school committee meetings, these are the DESE comparable schools. So obviously, we're not going to go for employment at Bridgewater Ryan. That's just too far away. So we broke it down to just a 15-mile radius of comparing Arlington, Burlington, North Andover, and Wakefield. It's important to note the cost of living index for Middlesex County is 147% higher than the cost of the nation. Just means we're 45% more expensive than anywhere else in the nation. When you look at our paraprofessionals, Chelmsford paraprofessionals, from the get-go at year one, we're at the bottom in salary. Not only that, as we progress through the years, we stay there with the gap just increasing. Our school year secretaries, they also stay at the bottom. There is no movement for them. Why would somebody want to come to Chelmsford when there's so little movement in comparison of towns? Looking at the contract further from each of these towns, you can see that towns offer their employees at the school districts various perks, if you might. Some of them are longevity, attendance, buyback. Chelmsford offers two, and that is toileting and feminine hygiene care for our students with the most needs. The other one is the ability to substitute. But we do not offer longevity, anything like that. So our ability to increase our salary is very limited. Unfortunately, our secretaries have no such perks available to them. It's also important to note that even within our contract right now, if there is a called snow day, our building has the ability to call in that secretary to come in and work for the day. Otherwise, they have to take a personal day or a sick day for that time. When you add in all of the financial perks that are potentially offered to our paraprofessionals and ABAs, Chelmsford stays at the bottom. There's no disputing these facts. These come directly from the individual contract towns with their hours and days of employment. Our school year secretaries have zero opportunities to increase their salary and remain at the bottom in comparison. Looking further at our surrounding towns, Chelmsford does rank a little bit better than Westford and Littleton. However, by year 3 and by year 6, they pay a higher wage. Their wages far exceed us, especially when you come to like Westford at year 7. It takes Chelmsford 15 years to get to $22,000. So why would somebody want to come to Chelmsford when they can put in their time in another district and earn more money? We realize that this is also a school year position. We work 181 days as a paraprofessional and ABA paraprofessional. Our secretaries, school year secretaries, 195 days. But if we wanted to live in town, let me back up one second. If we wanted to live in town, that's only 79 days out of 260 days available to work. That's 79 days that we would have to work over the summer, over vacations, things like that. We'll get to a slide in a moment, but I wanted to highlight that. We recognize this is only a school year position. But when you look at our monthly salary, we qualify for SNAP benefits. We don't earn enough money, and we would be qualifying for state SNAP benefits. Further, we can't even apply for the Chelmsford unsubsidized low-income affordable housing because we do not meet the minimum yearly income. What does it take to live in Chelmsford? $43,244. As you see on the bottom, a Chelmsford paraprofessional earns $21,200. In those 79 days, there is no ability to earn twice our salary. We are servicing the most neediest of our students in town, and they deserve better. Again, we ask for $257,000 to be added to the Chelmsford Public School budget to fill the 30 vacant positions that can be found listed on the School Springs website, which is our hiring position. As well, if you compare the positions within the Chelmsford budget, the salary line items, there are over 30 vacant positions. We ask that these be filled so that we can meet the requirements set forth in federal and state statutes. It will also eliminate the salary discrepancy with our surrounding towns. It will allow us to finalize our 3-year contract, and thus we avoid adding additional money and legal fees to the town for our negotiations to finalize. Thank you, and if you have any questions, Kathy and I can both answer them for you.
Thank you. Any questions for the presenters?
Just a point of clarification, Mr. Chair. You are speaking about an addition to the current fiscal year
Correct.
23 budget.
We
Okay.
are asking for, currently the fiscal year 23 is $67.5 million. We are asking for an additional $250 to meet the salary negotiations that we would like to finalize our contract with.
Thank you.
Point of question. My question is, why is this not a collective bargaining issue?
This is a collective bargaining issue. However, we are trying to exhaust all means to get to a settlement before we add additional legal expenses to the town's budget. Kathy? No.
Just Jim, a question. Even if we approve, like if we vote in favor of this and it goes to town meeting and it gets allocated to the school, we have no control over how they spend it, right?
Right.
Correct, and we understand that. We're with the hopes that with all of this, that Dr. Lang would allocate the money, but we do understand that he can do as he sees fit with it. But I don't think he would, but.
And on those wages, one more question on the wages.
Yes.
Is everybody exempt an 8-hour day?
No, I'll go back to that slide. On this slide, you can see Chelmsford Carlisle. They work a 6.5-hour day. They work for 180 days, and that is the salary that they earn. So underneath it, it lists the year of the contract expiration with their hours and days that they work.
6.
Okay, so 6.25 is because of an hour. Okay. And
Right.
then what about secretaries? Are they on the same schedule or are they full of different? Because I saw secretarial and then
I will-
clerical.
We have so many different hours for each classification. So for secretaries, like we've got from 5 to 7.5. So we just tried to go closest to what the other towns' hours are. So that's why, like for, where are we, the secretaries, we worked with like a 7-hour, 7.5, because that's the closest to all the other towns. So we could be off 15 minutes or a half hour, but in reality, that's not really going to be making it. It's just that we can walk into any of these school systems and, yes, I might have to work an extra half hour, but I'm going to make substantial more money. And we had a very big turnover
So-
this year.
Okay, so when I'm looking at Berlin, go back to that slide. Put up the slide.
The paraprofessional slide? The neighboring towns?
One of them.
Okay.
We had Burlington was like 44 and Chelmsford, they had, I think,
Yes.
230 days. Yeah. So when you say 7.5 hours, 230 days, they got to the 44, 493.
Correct.
And in Chelmsford, we only work 195. So if we annualize, if we got a per day amount, annualized to do a fair comparison, that's actually 37,000 compared to our 29.
So with Burlington, North Andover, Wakefield, and Arlington, outside of, let's look at Burlington, they do not provide an annualized contract. It's a very convoluted contract to understand. So the contracts that do not say annualized means that is just the days that they work. It does not include paid holidays and vacation days. So in reality, that $44,000 for Burlington is going to be more. We could not figure out apples to apples in that comparison. But Burlington does not include their paid holidays and vacations, so it would actually increase. Whereas Chelmsford is holidays, vacations, everything is $29,000.
For the 230 days, that looks like, okay.
So they work Burlington works a 46-week for their school year secretaries. Chelmsford works 41 weeks. I believe it's 41 weeks.
Okay.
I'd like to just thank you for a really well thought out presentation and nicely delivered.
Thank you.
I identify with your situation. Have you given any thought to the source of this money from the town? So it's $250,000, and I just want to make a little comment here. So we
Okay.
finished last year, and we had about $3 million in free cash. That's right. Okay, so. And most of that free cash comes from, excess revenues like building permits, so on and so forth. So if you take, I'm just, $250,000 is about 8% of free cash. So you could see that we don't really have the reoccurring revenues to support, just this.
Okay.
It would have an impact on our budget because we're only getting in 2.5%.
Okay.
So I'm just want you to think about the revenue source. Where would we come up with the $250,000
Okay.
based on your annual, the annual revenues? Then I would just like to say that this is somewhat of a school, the school committee gets to decide how they spend the money.
Correct.
So, as Anita said, even if the town meeting voted to appropriate this money in some way, we can't say how they're going to spend it.
Correct.
Thirdly, they have some cash of it. They have their whole budget to determine how they're going to spend it, and including they have money in their, I don't know the balance, but their money they collect for school choice. So there's a balance in that account. So somewhere, they have access to some cash. So,
I would like to think that as well.
but
through-
I'm not trying to
Right.
impede their conversation on your negotiations. I'm just saying that although $250,000 doesn't sound like much, what is the source of the funds? And if we did fund it, this is my basic principle. What is the source of the funds? And we don't get to decide how they spend it.
Right.
And we would be, in a way, interfering with negotiations. It feels like, but
I think we just want to explore every avenue.
yeah.
And that's why we're here tonight, because this is completely different to do. We recognize that we're in negotiations, but we're losing so many people, and you've got potential bigger issues coming up with kids, with a support staff covering 15 kids at once. They might not be getting the exact service right out there. So, we want to retain these people, right? We're important to the whole school system. So I hear what you're saying about the money, and I can appreciate that. It's to solve it and not go any further and incur lawyer fees and everything else. It probably, it could be a wash maybe. I say that lightly, but so, but yeah. But we hope, and we do recognize that Dr. Lang can do it as he needs with the money. We're hoping that he won't, and he would provide it, that since we're here advocating for it. And we're just asking that you take this into consideration as, you vote tonight, that you support us in this campaign. Because we have 30 openings, and that's a lot.
I have a question for you.
Certainly.
Thank you. So how did you folks arrive to the $250,000? And is it partially for vacant positions? And what is the mix of those positions? Or is it to increase the salaries of those that are already employed?
We would be, we realize that we have the vacant, and with that money, it would be hiring people and then bringing them at that salary.
At the existing salary that you,
What our proposed salary.
the proposed salary? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And that would be for this year?
If we could find people, sure, yes. I mean, it's definitely going to entice people.
What is-
We've had a lot of people walk away from jobs that I've heard from administrators where they've hired people, and then when they get down to, here's the offer, they're like, well, we can go to another place, like a convenience store or something, and they leave. Because they're like, why am I going to work this long, this many hours for $15 or $18, whatever it might be.
Thank you.
Where does Dr. Lang
maybe-
stand on this proposal?
I cannot speak
Yeah.
for Dr. Lang nor the school committee meeting. They are aware that we have made this request, but we cannot speak on their behalf of where they stand with this request of ours.
We've informed Dr. Lang of every step that we're doing along the way, so he is aware.
Anita, you had a question?
I do. So just for an update, what is the salary, and what does this 250 bring it up to? I might have missed that. I apologize if I did.
So that is part of our negotiations. I don't know if we can go into all of those details, but it would make us more competitive with our neighboring towns.
Are you,
Do you know what percent increase you're looking for? Can you
I'm not
disclose
sure.
that? Like with this
I'm not sure if we can disclose that right now without asking, but all the other towns have gone through a wage increase. They're doing the same type of campaign that we are. So, Billerica just finalized theirs recently. Tingsboro, I understand that like Acton, Boxborough, Concord, they have different fundings, but, they're all these towns are going to be going up very soon for negotiations as well. So, we're going to, even with our increase, like Littleton or Westford, they're out advocating for more money, so they potentially could even be making more. We're not asking to be the #1 town. We're just asking that to close the gap. Even with the increase that we're asking for, we're still not going to be even towards the high end.
So these funds would,
understood. And
Anita, if I may?
I just wanted to say,
You can
Sure.
jump in.
sure.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, it's not that again, like I said the other day or last week, I don't necessarily disagree with giving you the increases or paying people more. I do realize that COVID has really put a lot of kids behind, and I, do believe that this is an area that I'm not surprised is going to be looking for more funding, whether it's with paraprofessionals helping our special needs kids or with special need programs. I think as a town we should be expecting that. However, I think it feels like it's not the right time to be coming, if the negotiations had concluded and this was what you guys had come to an agreement for, and then coming to get that money allocated, I am 100% behind it, but it seems like it's still all up in the air and we have no control over it, of, where it's going to end, I guess. That's what I'm struggling with.
So I'm not sure if we did ratify the contract and, their team and our team agreed to it, that we could come back and ask for additional funding because we had already agreed to it. That's why we're asking beforehand.
So, just so I can kind of summarize what's occurring here. The current contract that's being negotiated hasn't been finalized and completely negotiated yet. What year would that be through?
That would be for July 1st of 2022 through June 30th of 2025.
And you're saying that these funds would be applied and secured for that
It would-
contract?
The funds that we're asking is for the fiscal year '23, so the '22-23 school year.
So it only affect 1 year of the current negotiated contract.
Because Dr. Lang has the money for the next 2.
Okay.
That complicates
So we won't, this is not like
Yeah.
we're going to be coming back
No,
every
and-
contract.
And I understand exhausting all options. I really do. I'm concerned on multiple levels about interfering with contract negotiations. I'm concerned about the fact that we have really no control over what the school committee and the school system does, CPS does, because they have budget line autonomy. And I appreciate your position, and I appreciate what you're trying to do here, trying to make sure to pre-secure funds so that you can finish negotiations. It's kind of what this feels like. I think that's what your aim is. You're trying to exhaust all options, secure the funds somewhere, and present them as part of your bargaining position, essentially. But again, my concern is that it's still being negotiated. And again, we have no budget line autonomy. I'm sorry, we have no control over their budget line autonomy. It concerns me.
Okay. Thank you.
But thank you very much for your presentation
Thank
and
you.
for answering your questions.
All right, thank you.
I think Paul would like to say.
Members of the Finance Committee, I'm sort of in this awkward position because I'm sitting in the room, and as you know, I serve as a member of the bargaining team for purposes of collective bargaining.
Yes.
So all I will say is the school committee's aware that they're here this evening, because I was with the school committee on Tuesday evening. And if there's any information I can provide for you, I will, but I think as you noted, it's in mediation. The parties are eligible to speak because it's in mediation, but that's their choice. But I just want you to know, that I'm here because of what's happened in the past. I don't want to sort of say, hey, you were in the room, you didn't say anything.
Certainly. No, we certainly appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Bear with me. I lost my agenda.
You're the chair.
I know.
Article 20.
Yeah, give me a little break. Very little sleep.
We'll cut you some slack. Yes.
All right. Next on our agenda, we have a review and discussion of Article 20, exempting the deputy fire chief from civil service. With us this evening, we have Josh Abbott, who's Vice President of the Chelmsford Firefighters IAFF Local 1839, and he's going to give us a presentation. I just pull that up for you.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for letting us in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The doors were locked when we got here
Oh, were
today.
they?
Couldn't get in.
Would have given you a tour, too.
At least we got his card, yeah, that's good.
John, may I beg your assistance on your computer? I have it ready to go, I just can't get to connect. Zoom separately this evening.
Okay, and, see, you got it in slideshow mode. Okay, there we go. I think it was just that little project.
Oh, excellent, thank you.
What's that?
It's the same presentation they did.
All right, good evening. My name is Josh Abbott. I'm the Vice President of the Chelmsford Firefighters, IFF Local 1839. I'd like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to come here and speak tonight about Article 20. I might have to have you do it.
Yeah, I think, so. Is it not, the clicker's not working? Yeah.
Isn't technology wonderful?
That's fantastic.
That's why I gave you the paper copies.
Thank you very much.
Still works, no matter what.
Yep.
Sometimes the dinosaur way works.
The drop down right here is a Zoom slideshow.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
I can
Okay.
advance them just so it's not. Oh, it's doing that. Okay, we'll just try to advance them.
I'll do that.
Okay.
So I'll control it from here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So in 1884, Massachusetts became one of the first states in the nation to adopt a civil service system. Civil service is a merit system in which state and municipal employees are selected and advanced on the basis of their capability, knowledge, and skill. It was established to ensure a fair, secure, non-political avenue to the hiring and promotional process in public service. Go ahead and so this slide just kind of gives a quick timeline of our acceptance into civil service. So in 1966, the town opted the fire department into civil service. In 1969, Deputy Fire Chief Charles Jangraw retired from his position. That resulted in the provisional appointment of Captain Edward Quinn to the Deputy Fire Chief's position, and that was pending the results of the first open competitive civil service examination for Deputy Fire Chief. Edward Quinn was later appointed permanently. Chelmsford has been well served by the civil service process for promotions, both permanently and provisionally since. Provisional appointments are also a part of Mass General Law, Chapter 31, which is civil service. It's Section 12. That part of the law lays out a process for what to do in the event that there's the need for a temporary position to be filled, when there's no list, when there's no civil service advancement list. So that's a benefit that the town of Chelmsford currently receives. So here we have all of our deputy chiefs who've served the town of Chelmsford, past, present, right through. So we've kind of bounced. We've had 2 at times, down to 1, back to 2, down to 1. So how the process works, I attached the reading list. It's pretty extensive to the packets I gave you. So it's roughly $650 in books. It's a $150 test fee for the candidate to take the test. You apply. It's hundreds more in study guides. There's test prep that you can do, online test prep. You can take practice tests, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of studying that go into these positions. On a side note, the state just added $4 million to the civil service budget. So the test fees actually dropped this year. They were $250 for us to take the promotional exams. They've dropped to $150. And that was as a result of a big study that was done. Was members of the House, the Senate, our labor organization, the PFFM, state police, the MMA. They all came together and looked at civil service. And part of it was they needed some funding. So the state dropped a fee, which is not very typical. The entrance exams went from 150 to 75, and there's now no fee for the physical abilities test for new hires. So there's a commitment from the state to civil service. Okay. So these are all the communities that currently have active deputy chief lists. So if they have an opening, their appointing authority can call for a list and begin the interview process. So our current test, how it's set up, 80% of your grade is based on your written exam, and then 20% is education experience. So that's professional experience, time in the department, time as a captain, your education in fire service, fire sciences, and then any professional certifications that you hold. There are other options within civil service. So an assessment center could be held through civil service, so it would be a standards-based oral board that again would be graded, and then a list would be established by civil service. And then there are communities that do 40% written, 40% assessment center, and then 20% or variations of. Okay.
Excuse me, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is the assessment center meaning that you actually display the skills required? I mean, is it very functional? What is it?
So it's like
Elaborate.
it's question and answers with a board.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's scenarios. So it's fire ground scenarios. It can be personnel management scenarios. And it's very in depth.
Okay. I didn't
Yeah.
know exactly what
So
that
a
meant.
typical question might be, how would you handle situation X?
Exactly.
And then you would have to describe the way
Yep.
you would handle it.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the written exam is, I'm not sure how many questions the deputy chief exam is, but the captain's exam is, for instance, it's 80 questions written, but it's on a stack of books is like this. It's
How often is it updated?
every 2 years is an exam. So in 2022, we're on a biannual basis for our examinations. They can also be called for when they're needed. So it's just kind of a timeline. So the reading list was released November 24th. The application period from the state for members to sign up was March 8th through the 29th. We were not included in that sign up. Not sure what the error was. There was a special sign up held for us after the fact. So our captains were notified after the sign up was closed on the state end. So it was open for approximately 2 weeks till April 19th. So 3 captains signed up. So the exam was postponed because we have 7 captains. You need to have a majority to hold the test. So the next test in the spring will be open to all classifications.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Because I'm not
Yeah.
really familiar with
That's fine.
departmental
Mhm.
workings. So basically, because you didn't have
Majority.
enough people to
Mhm.
take the test will be again, and then people could technically leapfrog positions.
Yep, that's
Is that
that's
the-
civil service law.
Yeah. So I'm at this level. Typically, it's only the captains who take the test. Or,
Yep. It's open to
Oh.
start 2 captains.
Okay. So I could be beneath the captain role, take the test, do well enough to become the deputy chief.
Yep.
Okay.
Just for clarification purposes, so the application period was from March 8th through March 29th.
That was the state.
That's a state
Mhm.
application period, and you're saying that Chelmsford was not included in the sign-up. Does that mean that the town has to apply to be included in the application period?
Yes.
Okay, and for some reason, whatever happened, it
Mhm.
didn't. And so.
So we had 3 captains commit to taking that test with that shorter notice, and then the exam was in early May. So that's, and
So
you have the
3
reading list.
So 3 captains committed for the special sign-up between April
1st and, yeah.
19th. But captains wanted to sign up at March 8th to 29th, and
I'm not sure what,
you don't know?
Yeah.
Okay.
How many captains do you have?
7.
7. Okay.
And
Oh, sorry.
can I ask a question? Because I do not know this process at all. So, like, once you take the test,
Yep.
you're permanently eligible? Or
No,
do you have
it's
to
only-
take it every 2 years?
Every 2 years you have to take it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. They update the reading lists, like new editions of books come out. They occasionally take books out based on current.
So what
practice.
happens if they just decide not to take it? Do they step down? Do they still hold their position?
Yeah, you still hold your position within the department. If you didn't want to take it the next time, you just won't be on the next list.
Okay.
And
So-
that's, you take it, you're not guaranteed to pass. They're not easy tests.
Right. So if they decide not to take it, there's no penalty for that?
No.
Okay.
Nope. Okay.
No. There we go.
So one thing that was brought up was, excuse me, was to attain parity with the police department. Their deputy chief is not in civil service. There's not a lot of parity with us, with our rank structure. We have a fire chief, a deputy chief, 7 captains, 50 firefighters. That's approximately 5 to 1, 5 firefighters to 1 supervisor. The police, you can see they have an intermediary rank, so they're police lieutenants, and they have police sergeants, patrol officers. So they're almost 2 to 1. But where it becomes an issue with us is on the fire ground and on our shifts. We have 11 to 13 firefighters reporting to 1 captain. So that's 11 to 13 to 1. And then that increases when mutual aid comes in. So that puts us at a disadvantage. So if we had that intermediary rank, the fire lieutenant rank, this exam would be opened up to fire lieutenants. It would not be opened up to just firefighters. And also the state offers, through the Department of Fire Services, anybody with the rank of lieutenant or higher can apply to be a credentialed chief officer. And that's based on years in your rank, years in your department, professional education, again, just like the education and experience. So we would be able to utilize, in this case, this next exam would be open to, if we had lieutenants, it would be open to that classification. But we don't, so it's open to firefighters. And you cannot apply for that chief credentialing as a firefighter, even though we have members who would get it, just they do not have that title.
How does this, how does this compare to other communities? Are we the only community without lieutenants?
Pretty much.
And I guess the fire chief's here, we can bring that up as well. Has there been discussion about
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions?
So the benefits of civil service are vast. It removes any bias and favoritism when appointing positions. There's no costs under the current system for the town for any part of the civil service, right from initial hiring and appointments, promotional exams, and the appeals process. So if in the appeals process, if you have a list and there's multiple people on that list and somebody is bypassed and you feel as though you were wrongly bypassed, that appeal would go through civil service. It's essentially a third-party neutral magistrate. And that's, you don't pay for that hearing. It's used by, as I said, that commission studied this exhaustively and they put $4 million towards it. So it's here. The state values it. The promotional exams are not easy. They show the dedication and commitment to the positions being sought by our members, and they provide an important career path. Okay. So at this time, we do not know any of the aspects of any sort of successor plan. We have not been made aware of what that would be. We don't know what the cost would be. For example, Westford held a deputy chief's exam. It was $6,300 last year. If there were contested results, how would an appeals process be held or handled? The lack of clarity regarding these issues seems egregious given the considerable benefits presented under civil service. For these reasons, the local asks for your support in opposition of Article 20. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Just one question, Mr. Chair. Firefighter Abbott, do you have any data or information relative to the number of deputy chief or supervisory positions that have been removed from civil service for area towns?
No,
Okay.
there's about 103 departments in the state that fall under civil service, so that's full-time departments.
Yes. Exactly.
Other than the 53 active lists, I've reached out to civil service. The contact that I have, I got an email back that said I'm on vacation, so
Okay.
I am happy to share that when I get it. I gave everybody my contact info. We're happy to have a dialogue.
It's,
At any time.
It's not a critical piece of information
Yeah.
for me, but it's just something that I
Yeah.
would like to know. Thank you.
Can I just ask somewhat, okay, so you take the test
Mm-hmm.
and you meet with the assessment board and,
Currently, we don't do that.
oh,
Currently, we just have a test.
okay,
So you're ranked based on your test score,
okay,
and your test score is taken 80% of your 80% of your grade is your test score, 20% is your education and experience.
okay, so you're the top scorer.
Mm-hmm.
The job is yours regardless of what
Not
the,
necessarily. You have to have an interview with the appointing authority, and you can be bypassed with reason.
and now there's some sort of procedures attached with
There-
being bypassed?
There is in civil service law.
And if there's a tie score, each candidate would be reviewed? I'm like, I mean, I don't know.
That would be
like-
up to the appointing authority.
So,
Yeah.
so for clarity, again, sorry.
Sure.
So for clarity purposes, if we were to oppose this through town meeting, civil service would still be in effect.
Mhm.
The test would be open to all firefighters at this point coming up. So if we don't oppose this, the plan is to take it out of civil service, and the appointing authority would be the chief in the specific in our town, essentially. So
Yes.
I just
We haven't been given a plan. That's,
okay,
we don't know if it's going to be just an appointment, if it's going to be an assessment center, or
but it wouldn't be in civil service.
it would not be in civil service. So again, the civil service has it's non-biased, non-political.
Your desire is to keep it there, and for the firefighters to proceed with the sign up for the exam coming up.
Yep.
Okay. Just want to make sure we.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay?
Can I just ask one more question?
Sure.
Sorry, I'm kind of like Kathy on this. So what would be the negative? Like, if you have to take a test every 2 years, you know, what if you have like a conflict and you can't take that test, but you're really the person that should be given the next promotion? Isn't it better not to do it? Like, not to have this? So you're not forced to take a test every 2 years?
And that's opinion.
So we
I
can.
would think it would be better for you. No, I mean,
No,
just,
so,
again, I am.
So what would happen
the other
here?
side of it, so I'm just trying to understand.
What would happen here, Anita, is
Yeah.
the way it currently is structured, and please correct me if I'm incorrect, is that through civil service, every 2 years they have this exam. It's offered first to the captains. The captains sign up. If they don't sign up, enough of them sign up, then it's offered to the next level of firefighter. In our case, it's going to be the 50 firefighters that are currently working for our town. If, however, we're taking out of civil service, then and I guess there's some clarity to work out as to how it would be structured, and certainly, Chief, I'll ask you to come up and just speak on that, if you don't mind. But if it were to be taken out of, so it would no longer be in civil service, the exam would not go forward with the 50 firefighters this year, Anita, and the exam would not be offered in the future to the captains as it currently is, and then to the firefighters after. So it would take the process with civil service out of the picture, and it would become more of an appointings, like it's done. I think like it's currently done on the police side, where the chief chooses the deputy based upon an interview hiring process, and that person's then appointed to that position. So it takes the civil service process, the exam process away, and makes it more of an appointment through a hiring process, an interview process by the head of the department.
Yeah, but I think it's like, to me, it's a no-win. It's a no-lose situation for them, because then.
Well, it is though, because
So like, if you have a bad, it is. Help me, because I'm lost.
because as
then.
so he's representing as vice president of the firefighters union. He's saying that they want the opportunity to
Yeah.
continue with the civil service, to use the program, and to proceed with actually taking this exam, so that they'll have the opportunity to be in that position, and where they might not normally be a candidate to be hired to that position.
It's not even. It's,
all right, thank
I mean,
you.
just to pull it because it's
All right.
open to firefighters, that's short-sighted. I gave you the reading list. There's some just to have members engaged and read those books and gain that valuable knowledge is a net benefit to the department and the town. Even if you don't end up in the position, you're still gaining knowledge that's applicable to your job. So that's.
So, did I currently
Yep.
correctly? Okay, just want to make sure we correctly we understood
Yeah.
where the position is. Okay. Any other questions for presenter? Thank you very much.
You have my contact info,
You do.
so any questions that come up, feel free. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, if you don't mind, if you could come up and speak to what the plan might be, and for us to understand where the town's coming from on this particular article.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and board members. And congratulations, by the way, for the addition to your family. So I just want to get that,
Thank you.
say that, so
Thank you.
congratulations to you and your family. Just a couple of points of clarification. So it was in August 8th of 1975 that we joined civil service. I know they put 1970, but we have a document from the town, says August 8th, 1975. As far as the timeline, so civil service falls under the state's Human Resource Division. And why that's important is there's an insinuation that we dropped the ball, we signed up late, so members couldn't sign up in time. You're either in or out. The reading list comes out in November. So if you're really interested in becoming a chief officer, that list comes out 6 months before. And if we have a list here, we pulled it tonight, showing when we signed up for civil service. This last one, you've got to understand, last year, during COVID, many members of civil service were working remotely. So Currently, yes, the next test is for next May. We don't have to do anything. We're being told that we do not have to schedule an exam. It's Civil Service's belief that that happened last year, that we were told you guys were all set, you don't have to pull for an exam. There wasn't enough members prior to that, so you don't have to schedule. It's going to be automatically held. Then at some point in March, yes, we found out, yes, there's a sign-up period. We were told that we need to get a requisition number. So Anna Griffin pulled it. It was towards the end of March, I agree. But what Civil Service will not tolerate is only opening that period up for a week. They give members adequate time to sign up. So there's no shenanigans. There's no trying to prevent members of the Chelmsford officers, the captains, from signing up. And it's not like I don't talk to them. I did ask some of these members, why didn't you sign up? And some of these members just told me, one, we didn't buy the books, we didn't take the time to study. Civil Service will allow, however, even if you're not interested in taking the exam, you could actually get that fourth person, have them sign up and pay, and yet not show up. That was an issue that came up back in 2015 when they had a Civil Service chief in Lowell, when only one member showed up. That is still allowed. As far as the cost, it was a thing put up there that there's no cost. There is a cost if you hold an assessment center. According to Civil Service, it's a minimum of $5,000. There is a cost for that. The town is responsible for that cost. And as far as why this is important, I think if you just look recently what happened, yes, we have hired, I was a Civil Service chief. I certainly appreciate, I can understand the whole issue of hiring people through, and that's why Civil Service was put in place, because of favoritism. I get it. Municipalities, especially in this environment, get it as well. And I did convey this, by the way. We had a meeting with the officers. The question came up, and I did say, look, this is my opinion. If this goes through, I personally, I can't talk about prior chiefs, I would have an interview panel. I even described the makeup of the panel. Typically, and I've served on panels. I've served on panels for chiefs. I've served on panels for captains. I've served on panels for lieutenants. And typically, an interview panel will have the fire chief, town manager or representative, human resources will be involved. Typically, there's another area fire chief from a different department. Usually your public safety partners, you might have like the police chief, and sometimes you may have a citizen, could be one of you, on that committee. And seeing recently, I shouldn't say recently, that the police department hired 3 deputy chiefs within 9 years. Jim Spinney was promoted as deputy chief in 2013, quickly became chief. Dan Ahern was promoted in 2014, and most recently in 2022, Colin Spence. So I did talk to Chief Spinney quite a bit about this, about his process. And, and I think what was conveyed to me, what makes sense to myself and the town manager, is we should have the ability to assess our members' skills, their strengths, their work performance, their ability to work a chief officer's position. The deputy chief's position is the second ranking member. Myself and Deputy Donahue work hand in hand. It's 24/7. And I think what's critical is to make sure that the right person's in there. And just their knowledge, their skills. And yes, if the deputy retired this December, I would have to wait on the current system to have the test next May. I would have to wait for the results to come out, which could take a couple of months. And then, yes, I could appoint a provisional, but if that provisional appointment doesn't top the civil service exam, that person doesn't get it. And if you've seen with DPW recently, you had Gary Persichetti retire, and you had a succession plan. They hired a DPW director to work with Gary for about 2 months to pass on the knowledge, the skills, the system in Chelmsford. And I think that system worked out well for our current DPW director. And I kind of think seeing how the system went with Chief Spinney, having discussions with him, certainly think we have the talent that we could form an interview panel and really take a good look at our needs, not only the department, but the town's need, because the deputy chief not only just works with me, but he works with other agencies, other department heads, and certainly with the business community. So I think that's the opportunity we're looking for. And certainly, if there's any other questions.
Could you go over the timeline again? You said
Yes.
if the gentleman were to retire now, like,
Okay, so
Please.
correctly, there is not a current list. And just looking back, it's not like we haven't called for a deputy chief's exam. I have it right in front of us that we have called for it in the past. But if there's not enough members, like in 2014, it gets canceled. Called for it again, 2016, it gets canceled because there wasn't enough members. If there's not enough members, they will default to the following year, and then it opens up to the next lowest rank, which for us is firefighters. But right, to answer your question, yes, if the deputy chief was to retire next month, I could put a provisional appointment in. That provisional appointment would be effective until the next civil service exam becomes available.
and the results are in.
Correct.
And that, if you were counting months, that would be like 9 months or something? Or,
It would be probably next summer. So you
Yeah.
you take the test in May, you gotta wait for the results to come out, it has to get certified by civil service, and then you would have a list.
okay.
And the list would be from successful takers of the exam from that current rank. So for it'd be firefighters taking the exam for the next sign-up, is that also your understanding?
So as far as the firefighters could take it, because it's open unless we cancel that exam.
Yeah.
And Chelmsford has a unique provision within civil service, so somebody who has 10 years or less. So it doesn't open up to all 50 firefighters. If you have less than 10 years, you can't take a
Okay.
promotional exam.
So there is some sort of level of it may not be because we don't have a lieutenant structure.
Right.
But there is a certain level of skill and involvement that would be required in order to
Right,
proceed.
there's if I could relate a story that Chief Farrell told me, there was a department out there that he's aware of where they put in an acting chief. It was the next lowest rank, and that person, the acting chief did not pass. So the position, both chief and deputy chief were filled by the lower rank. One of them was a firefighter. So and I agree that it's not common that happens, but we've had that issue in town where a lower member passed, had a higher score than a company officer.
Could the deputy chief come from outside the town?
No, with civil service, no.
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 You know, civil service, it's pulled from within the
Correct.
community. Yeah.
So who provides the assessment? Is it a third-party body?
If you elect to go with the civil service option, the way it was relayed to me through civil service, the town would have to approach a company that performs assessments. There would have to be a written agreement between that company and approved by civil service. You just can't, it has to be approved by civil service.
Okay, thank you.
Just to follow, excuse me, Chief, to follow up on Cindy's question, just so that I understand. So the way it is currently under civil service, the weighting goes 80% based on the examination.
Depends on what option you pick.
Okay, so can that change from one
So
period to
you
the next?
could, it's my understanding that if you elected to do, say, a written, you could do 40% written, 40% on the assessment, and then 20% education experience. They do give you credit based on your experience on the department and based on your education level.
Okay,
So it's my understanding that you can have some flexibility now with civil service to
Okay.
kind of change that, to put more weight towards one or the other.
And who would make that decision?
I could.
You would make that decision. Now, can you make it on a sequential basis? So this year, you opt to stay with the 80-20. Next time it's up, you opt to go with assessment. Is that a possibility? You can do that?
So I could go, right now, I could keep the current configuration, which is the 80-20.
Mm-hmm.
I could apply for a change. So it could be assessment plus written, Or I could apply, if I get approved, and just do an assessment.
Okay. Have we
That's my
ever,
current understanding.
have we ever done that, or have we always?
have not.
Okay, so we've always stayed with the 80-20
For the written,
situation.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
So that wasn't an option before.
So it's one, so it's one for the entire town, right? It's not that
For the department.
Yeah,
Yes.
the individual has a choice. It's townwide. So, for example, one person couldn't do an 80-20.
Oh,
and
correct,
another
yes.
person
I would
couldn't
have to
do-
make that determination. I would have to apply, I would have to get approved
And you
for it.
apply to the Civil
Civil Service
Service
Commission, correct.
Commission. Okay, thank you.
So playing the same process out that we
Right.
did previously, if if town meeting were not to support this
Right.
and to allow civil service to remain in place,
Correct.
the test would be opened up to the 50 firefighters or the ones that
Yes.
have the 10 years
Yep.
experience.
Eligible, yep.
That are eligible.
Yep.
They would take the exam,
Yes.
and that would theoretically create the pool of candidates that could be put into that position for deputy chief.
Correct. It would be open up to eligible members of the next lowest rank, which is the firefighters.
Okay.
Yep.
And the concern with that occurring, given the rigorous testing, is that, I just want to make sure I understand,
Sure.
is that there is a leapfrog over the captain rank, even though not enough captains signed up, or?
So what you could have happen, you could have a lower ranked member, a firefighter, score higher than a captain.
Okay.
And that has happened on this department many years ago.
And what is I just want to understand what the concern is with that happening.
So the concern is the deputy chief is such a vital role to this department. I mean, we work hand in hand. He's responsible for not the operations of the budget, operations, but also for the budget, capital needs, procurement, which is very challenging in this environment.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly, I think you need to have some experience in a certain, quite frankly, I do not agree with opening it up to lower rank. I do agree with what Vice President Josh Abbott was saying. Certainly, there is a benefit for all of us to have that knowledge, to be able to open the books. But the firefighters can do that when they're eligible to take a promotional exam for captain at the 10-year mark. So Chelmsford has a 10-year rule. When you're on 10 years, you can get the books, study, and you can apply for the captain's exam. So there's that opportunity.
So I guess, and please correct me if I'm
No.
putting words in your mouth, your concern is that the on-the-job experience is also something that you're looking for in that position where the firefighters, if they become captains,
Sure.
they have additional on-the-job experience that may not be, I don't, not knowing the exam, I don't know,
Right.
may not be assessed during that period. I just, I want to make sure we're clear, because just at first blush, it looks like, well, someone scores the best, then why aren't they the best person for
Right.
that position?
Right.
I just want to understand, is it a on-the-job experience type of situation where you want both?
So you could have somebody who is a lower ranked member, a firefighter, top that exam. And again, it is very difficult. You do, like Josh was saying, you have to put the time in,
Yeah.
buy the books. But you could have somebody right now who's a firefighter, who's studying for the captain's exam, and then parlay that into the deputy's exam, which is exactly what we had happen a number of years ago, where somebody was a firefighter, took the captain's exam, did well in the captain's exam, but then decided, oh, no, I'm going to buy the extra books for the deputy's exam and top that. So it's quite challenging to go from a firefighter to a captain. It is not on our department, but it is monumental from that jump from firefighter to a chief officer level to a deputy chief. You never held the rank of a captain who oversees, one captain oversees, again, we have, the 11 firefighters. And now you're going from a firefighter with you don't have that responsibility. You don't have that management experience. And all of a sudden you're going to go from firefighter to a deputy chief. You wouldn't see that on any other department. It's too big of a jump.
So if this were to pass, you could theoretically hire somebody from outside of town to fill a position.
If this were to pass, it's my understanding, and I had this question with Chief Spinney, it would have to be posted and approved, I think, by the town manager. if we wanted to go outside the department, I don't see that happening. Not for a deputy chief.
Okay.
Usually for a chief, possibly, you see outside, but not for a deputy chief.
Any further questions? Oh. Certainly.
Let me just,
Given the previous question, yes.
no, let me just give you my perspective on this. I think what I'm looking for is to have the chief of the department, whether it's police or fire, have the ability to best perform and serve the community. The deputy position supports the chief.
Mhm.
We've seen on the police side, over histories, we've seen it, and in recency, I've experienced it, where the chief chose the deputy, and I've supported that choice. And I think that that enables the chief to work effectively, because we have many people qualified, let's say on the police side, who could be police chief in the lieutenant rank, and who could be deputy chief. But I think what it comes down to is, who does that chief, who's appointed at the department, feel can best serve him and the department as deputy? And I want that same thing to happen on the fire side. That the person that we choose to be the chief, that I choose and the select board confirms to be the chief, should have the ability to choose of the qualified captains, in my mind, the person who's best able to assist him in running that department. And I think I foresee that it would happen, as we've seen on the police side, that you do it with an assessment center. But ultimately, I don't want the person who scores the best to be the first in line for the job. I want the chief to have that ability and authority to choose amongst the most qualified who the best person is. And let me give you an example, because, for example, right now, when the police chief chose his deputy, that doesn't guarantee that that person is going to be the next police chief.
Mm-hmm.
It means that this person is the best person to serve this police chief. And corollary, if the fire chief chooses the person of the captain to be the best deputy chief, then that person would be the best deputy chief for that fire chief. But that's not a guarantee that that person is the best person to be the next chief of the department. It just means that combination of chief and deputy are best serving the department in the appointment made by the manager to appoint the chief, and then confirmed by the select board, and then the appointment for the deputy by the chief to appoint the deputy, confirmed by me. And I think if you look in the fire department, that's a department where they went outside the department to hire a fire chief. Chief Parrow was outside of this department. There was a deputy chief when Chief Parrow was the chief. He was not chosen to be the chief, rightly or wrongly. And so all I'm feeling is the concern I have that if either way, I'm convinced the town's going to survive and be well served. But the concern I have is the person who, if you stay with the civil service and scores the highest on the exam, is the best person who could probably score well in an exam, but that may not be the best person to be the deputy, because we're dealing with people. And as you said, how those people work together can best serve the department. So I just want you to say that's my perspective of why I think this is worthy for the town to consider, and I think we have a track record on the police side, and I think it would work as well on the fire side. But I just want to know that this is, in either scenario, I imagine there will be an assessment center, because there should be. In fact, it should go down to all the levels of rank. There should be assessment centers for lower ranks as well, because that helps, I think, given those scenarios about what works best. So again, it's trying to bring, in my mind, the department best positioned to move forward in the future, regardless of who the chief is and who the manager is, in terms of how having that ability for the community. So I just wanted to give you my perspective of why I think it's, you're right, it's a call, and you're right, you're dealing with people and such, but I think that's, to me, I just sort of weigh down, I think that's a better approach than the other. Doesn't say that either of them aren't good, I just think that's a better approach.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Chief, just so that I'm clear, and I may have missed it, and if I have, I apologize. Scenario, 4 captains take the civil service test, and obviously there's a top scorer.
Yes.
You personally feel that one of the other candidates is better qualified. Do you have any discretion or any option at all, or do you have to take that top scorer?
So under civil service rules, if I choose to bypass the top candidate, I have to provide that candidate with the reasons why he or she is being bypassed. That individual then has the right to take my decision and appeal it to civil service.
In your experience and knowledge, has that happened recently anywhere? Has it, I don't even know, I don't think it's happened in Chelmsford, but has it happened anywhere else to your knowledge where the top scoring candidate was bypassed and that decision was upheld?
Well, that decision did happen in the department back when, again, the scenario I pointed out where the...
I'm an old man, my memory isn't so good.
So that scenario did take place in the department. It did work out, and I say work out because the individual who did top the deputy's exam, as a result of, it was kind of like a domino effect. The other individual who was the officer was promoted deputy chief, and the one who topped it ended up becoming a captain. So, yes, there was a bypass. He had to be provided the reasons why, but he went from a firefighter to captain. I think he was... I don't want to put words in that person's mouth, but I think he was satisfied with the outcome. But that's the only scenario that I'm aware of in this department. I
Okay.
can't speak for other
All
departments.
right, thank you.
Yep.
But just to add on to Sam's comment or question, I know sometimes it comes down to chemistry. You can't give someone a reason. Can you say, well, the chemistry was better with this person versus that person for a reason, or is that not allowed?
That decision will be judged by civil service. So yes, you could say, look, I don't think you're a fit. I don't think you would. You don't have the skill sets. You could say, I don't think you have the experience, the knowledge. You're a good fit. But ultimately, if the person chooses to chooses to appeal it, that decision will be made by civil service, not by me.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next on our agenda this evening, we have a review and discussion of Article 21, zoning bylaw amendment, definition of warehouse, Article 22, zoning bylaw amendment, definition of distribution center, and Article 23, zoning bylaw amendment, use regulation table. With us this evening, we have Christopher Lavalley. He's the citizen petitioner for this particular article. Let me just bring it up. Why are we not? Okay, here we go.
Did you get my updated?
You're updated, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
All right, whenever you want. Ready.
Okay. Assuming the clicker does work. Okay. Thank you, Finance Committee, for having me this evening. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your time. Today, I'm going to be walking you through a little bit of the original text, talking to you about why what you're seeing today is going to be a little bit different than what was on the original proposal. And then we'll get into some of the more specifics. So the initial text of the three proposed articles was different because the citizens petition with the initial text was signed by the residents in support. Since that time, I've been working with the planning board and a number of different citizens to improve it, to make some changes, and to do a lot of clarification from the original. And under the laws governing the citizens petitions for town meeting warrant articles, we would have had to gotten the original signatures to re-sign the new version in order for it to appear. Because some of those revisions happened the day before the select board voted on those, we did not have time to do that. So we were allowed to essentially have the original text, and then I'm presenting the updated text today. So why are we doing this? Business models are constantly changing. It's partially due to the pandemic, where companies needed to pivot their models in order to survive. It's partially due to typical advances in technology and evolution of business. It also is through normal competition. People are doing more remote work than before. Many office parks are being redeveloped. It's delivery of goods rather than in-person shopping. And of course, Amazon is constantly changing their distribution model to more smaller last mile facilities. And since they're a leader in the industry, a lot of other businesses are following their lead. While automation is not necessarily a negative thing, the trend towards more automation in these facilities changes the business model and creates misalignments with our current definition of warehouses, distribution centers, fulfillment centers that use throughput, volume, traffic, efficiency in their definitions and traffic codes. So we have to keep current. As the planning board member Nancy Arroway said at our September 14th meeting, the Dalton Road public hearing, we protect our neighborhoods. Of all things our zoning regulations do, we protect our neighborhoods. I absolutely agree with her. So we must keep our bylaws updated to protect our infrastructure, our wetlands, our safety, our jobs, our town character, all while still trying to allow progress. We want to attract businesses that benefit our town. Does that really include a large distribution center and fulfillment center that could disrupt our town? Our singular one-size-fits-all definition of warehouse is outdated, does not take into account any of these new changes. The planning board did bring an overlay to town meeting a few years ago to try to address this, but that overlay failed for a number of reasons. However, I believe that many of the town meeting reps at that time, including myself, made it clear that we wanted the planning board to go back to the drawing board and come back with an improved proposal to address those warehouses and distribution centers. It's been a while and nothing has been done. And so now we're starting to see projects being proposed to take advantage of that inaction. So these articles are being brought forward to start to address the issue and to protect our neighborhoods. So today I'm going to go over 3 proposed articles. It's not going to be perfect. They'll not address everything since we can't predict the future, but it's a good start and a first step that has to be taken. The initial definitions of this proposal that are in the original text are based on Acton's definitions, not the permissibility, but just the definitions, and use them as a model. They're a town very similar to ours, slightly smaller, but similar populations, located in the intersection of Route 2 and 495, and similar goals and aspirations in their community planning. I also then included components from definitions of distribution centers and fulfillment centers from Prince William County, Virginia, that were developed in 2020. So that those definitions help provide additional clarity and definitions and addressed many of the comments and concerns that people had. Throughout this process, I've also been compiling an FAQ to address other questions and concerns that I've heard. I've emailed you the slides and the FAQs so that you can also include it in your booklet as well. So, Article 1. For this article, the next slide contains the explanation, and you'll have that in the text of the slides. But for this presentation, I'm going to leave this slide here so you can see it as I walk through the explanations. This first article distinguishes the lower impact warehouses versus the higher impact distribution and fulfillment centers. It defines a warehouse as the bulk storage and shipping between B2B and primary business purposes, as the primary business purpose. It excludes facilities that are primarily meant to transfer and distribute goods and materials to consumers. It does not change the permissibility for warehouses or anything else. It just defines it. Anything covered by this definition of warehouses is still permitted in our zoning as they currently are. On Article 2, For this article, I know this text is incredibly small and hard to read, so I'm showing it as an overview, and I will go into some of the details in the next slides. The prior article defined what a warehouse is and isn't. This article defines what a distribution center is and isn't. And more specifically, it defines the differences between the small, medium, and large distribution centers. This article and the one before, again, only define the uses, not the permissibility. That's the third article. So for this explanation slide, I've grayed out the top portion of the article to focus on the one paragraph of the small distribution center. For all three paragraphs, the medium, small, and large definitions, all of the text except for the ones highlighted here are exactly the same in order to define the distribution center in its core. The highlighted differences are all related to sizes, and we'll get to that in a moment. But if you remove the size differences for a moment, you'll see that this article defines distribution centers as the primary purpose of moving goods to consumers rather than storage as the primary purpose. For these purposes of these articles, we've also included fulfillment centers in the definition. It excludes warehouses, already defined in the previous article. It excludes transport terminals, which are already defined in zoning definition elsewhere. And while not called out specifically by name, it's intended to include parcel hub and sorting facilities because those facilities transfer, distribute, or fulfill to customers rather than storage as their primary use. This article also explicitly excludes retail uses with accessory delivery components like grocery stores, Kohl's, etc. So the changes in the text of the three parts of the article are related to the size of the facility. So the zoning article needs to be forward-thinking in terms of preparation for future changes in business models and efficiency. We've used gross square footage since that's often used as the key distinguishing characteristic in zoning, traffic, and other studies. The town's major business complex, for example, used by the planning board, is one of the many examples where size of the building is a factor that determines how the property is managed in the bylaws. Size has rough correspondence to potential impact to the town. So the next question is, why these sizes? We've used 20,000 square feet as the cutoff between small and medium because it's aligned with the size used for major business complex and related special permits. So we didn't want any incompatibilities there. 75,000 is the cutoff for the large. In researching many of these last mile distribution centers, most are currently ranging between 200,000 and 250,000 square feet. The newest Amazon facility in Bridgewater is about 150,000 square feet. That's a significant recent shift in business model and efficiency from Amazon that reduced their last mile footprint by roughly 50,000 square feet. It won't be long before another shift in the business model will make it even smaller. Another aspect is that many of these larger 200,000 square foot buildings offer space for multiple tenants and not just one. So a 150,000 square foot building could easily be divided for two tenants operating 75,000 square foot distribution centers. So now we get to the third article. For this article, the next slide contains the explanation. You'll have that in text format. But for this presentation, I'm going to leave this slide up so you can take a look at the slide while I explain. The way this article is structured, it provides flexibility for the town while still mitigating the negative impacts to the town from the distribution centers of large size. The permitted use by special permit for the small and medium distribution centers in industrial zone and small distribution centers in commercial zone is allowed here. Large distribution centers would not be allowed in town in any zone. This is aligned with some other uses our town has excluded in any part of town when the town feels that the detrimental impacts cannot be mitigated enough and are still more than any of the benefits or potential benefits to the town. Examples currently in the bylaws are airport, refuse incinerator, landfill solid waste disposal, which was added in 2005, heavy manufacturing added in 2012, asphalt manufacturing plant in 2017, and marijuana in 2017. Special permits for the small and medium while banning the large offers a balance between the flexibility of the planning board special permitting process and mitigation of the largest impacts we're seeking. Granularity of the definitions in the use table allows the town to adjust these bylaws in the future as business models change. For example, if we find the efficiency in business models of distribution centers changes such that we're seeing a more negative impact at a lower square footage, then these can be adjusted easily. So, as I was presenting this to the planning board, one of the questions that came up was, what is the impact or potential impact to current properties in town? So for that, to answer that question, I worked with the town engineering department and the GIS manager to get actual building area for the IA properties. So the data they had in GIS was building footprint area. So it's not an exact match to the gross square footage, but it is an approximation that we can use. So if we assume that all businesses in the IA district are distribution centers, as defined by the new zoning proposal, and not a warehouse or retail or anything like that, then 80% or 311 out of the 386 businesses would be under 20,000 square feet. 60 of them would be between 20 and 75 square feet. So a total of 96.36%, or 371 of those 386 or 385, would be allowed by special permit. Only just over 3.5%, or 14 of those 75 of those properties over 75,000 square feet, would not be allowed, and that's if we assume that they're a distribution center as defined. If we actually look at those properties, 6 of them are office buildings, 1 of them's a warehouse, which is allowed still, 1 of them's the DPW building, 2 are manufacturing, 3 are potentially manufacturing and wholesale. I had to dig a little bit deeper, and I'm still not sure if those are manufacturing wholesale or distribution centers. And 1 is definitely would be considered a distribution center because that is UPS. So looking at this, the actual impact to current properties and businesses is pretty minimal. But it would prevent future negative impacts to the town. So with that, I would ask if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Chair. Mr. Lavalley, can you go back to the slide in your presentation that talks about the exceptions under Article 22, I believe, where you talked about various and sundry classifications might fall under an exception. I don't know if I'm making myself clear enough for you to understand my question.
Would it be?
Wait a minute, go back up, the one you just had. Yes, that's the one.
Okay.
Exclude facilities that are primarily meant to transfer or distribute goods and material to consumers. If these articles should pass, would that impact any current facilities that we have in town, either with respect to the fact that they would have to be considered grandfathered under the existing zoning, or would we actually have to seek a zoning change? And I'm thinking in terms of like the UPS distribution facility, just as an example.
Based on my understanding, any changes to the zoning and the chairperson, they would be essentially grandfathered in.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Some
All right.
substantial project came around.
Existing non-conforming.
Yep.
Right. Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Your Article 23, you had a chart up there. It was like for industrial, you had a couple of things highlighted. There's a bunch of codes, this one.
Yep.
So the principal use, could you explain this a little bit and why you've
Sure.
chosen to highlight the ones you did?
Sure. So the original articles that we put forward had one line, and it said distribution center, and it was excluded in all zones. Working with the planning board and some of the community members, we realized that we needed the stratification of the sizes. So we added that in. And through the discussion, we're really looking at minimizing the impact of these large distribution centers in town. So for that one, we put no's, the ends mean not allowed, in all of the zones, including the industrial zone, which is IA. In discussion with the planning board, they really wanted some control to remain with the planning board and not exclude all distribution centers. So that's why, one of the reasons why we made the small and medium, by planning board special permit, which would be the PB in the IA zone, and in the retail zone, in the shopping area. And that's the CC for small.
Okay.
So the small would be allowed by special permit in the CC shopping area, plus the industrial IA. The medium would be special permit only in the IA, and then large would be not allowed in any zone in town.
So is IA industrial area, is that defined somewhere?
Yes.
Yes.
Do we, okay,
Yep.
thank you, thank you.
So would this change?
Like, for example, that would be 129, right? That's IA. And in fact, the planning board does have a proposal in front of it for a distribution center currently replacing one of our office buildings on 270 Billricker Road.
So that leads to my next question. Would this change in the language affect any pending applications?
No.
If you would like to address that.
Mike, if you would go into the microphone, please, thank you.
Mike Raisbeck, Chairman of the Planning Board. The quick answer is no, that it wouldn't. It creates some situations where proponents may take some slightly different steps, but stuff that's already in the
pipeline,
in
so
the
to speak.
pipeline would not be affected in any great way.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
I'd like to understand why having a large facility is bad for the town.
So, in my research, and this has been brought up at one of the current projects that is being proposed right now, we've been doing a lot of research on other towns who have these facilities, small towns, large towns. Some of the problems that can be associated with this are traffic congestion, significant amount of truck traffic in town in various areas. There are safety concerns depending on where the facilities are located. They tend to be lower paying jobs than higher paying jobs for the distribution centers. There are fewer jobs than similar size facilities with other uses, especially as the automation increases in these places. And so if you're looking across the country at where these places are popping up and how towns are grappling with the potential negative impacts, most of them are seeing that the negative impacts to town far outweigh the positive impacts. And many of the towns that have approved them are often left with some issues that they really are regretting and that they can't resolve. Some of these companies have found really good ways around some of the regulations and some of the enforcement that has happened. Another potential issue that I see is because the rapid change in these business models, there are some towns that approved these large distribution centers just 2 years ago, and the company's already pulling out, leaving a massive empty warehouse that needs to be filled now. And that's already happened in 2 communities in Massachusetts that was recently in the news. I think there were 5 communities, but 2 of those communities had just opened the facility 2 years ago. So the turnover of these companies is pretty high too. Also, property values in the area tend to decrease when you have a large distribution center next to your house. Just the quality of life for the town would tend to suffer.
And John, just a side note, for those, because I live in East Chelmsford, and you weren't here last week, but Chris is my brother-in-law. But in East Chelmsford, we have UPS, and the issues we are now seeing with UPS, came in back in the 80s. They no longer, the employees who drive the trucks are no longer their employees, they're leased employees. So if they're going up wrong streets, which there's a lot of folks dealing with this now, there's nothing you can do. You can't call UPS, nothing they can do. So it's really becoming an issue. Additionally, hearing, like if you abut one of these facilities, the noise of those tractor trailers carries. And UPS in East Chelmsford, there's 10 1-acre lots, plus their whole parking lot that abuts the actual warehouse where they're doing the, hitching backing up the trucks to a neighborhood, and it's still causing a lot of issues, during all hours of the night. And like I said, there are 10 1-acre lots, fully with trees and the whole bit. Plus, then you have its driveway before you even hit the building, and the noise is quite disruptive to the neighbors.
And in many towns and cities where a lot of people are putting these distribution centers, there's a lot of open space and a lot of buffer between some of these distribution centers and the houses and communities. We don't have that in Chelmsford. Many of our residential areas are really tight up against some of the industrial areas. In fact, we have some areas that are a little bit more mixed. And I know the planning board is looking at addressing some of those areas. But these companies are starting to come into town now. And I feel that in order to at least try and do something to prevent that in the short term, while the planning board is looking at potential overlays or zoning changes, that would be in our best interest.
Chris, you mentioned
And
that.
Matthew, and if you look at, I just want to add, if you look at, like, UPS was built in the 80s, and you look at some of the buildings on 129, and we've got Sam here, from the assessor's office. If you look at the value of these buildings, right, for the square footage, what we get for an office building versus what you get for a warehouse, you're getting 30% less with the warehouse. Warehouses are valued less than office complexes. So we've got to kind of think through from a financial impact that could have to the town as well.
So we'll certainly, when we address and vote and discuss on that, Anita, we'll talk about those aspects at that time. Just for clarity purposes, I don't believe the planning board has had a chance to vote. Oh, you have? Okay. Okay. And you voted in favor of these?
I presented to them last night, and
Very
if you-
nice.
Sorry, I've been busy.
Well, if you'd like, I'll just stand up.
If you don't mind,
Come to
I'd
the podium,
appreciate it,
please.
yes.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Yeah, well, first of all, this has been a very interesting the work that Chris did. They did some wonderful, wonderful work, and they've kept us pretty busy. And I think the version that you're seeing up here now represents a fair bit of input from the planning board, as well as the work that Chris and others have done. And so I really do want to thank you for that. It's brought a lot of these issues to the forefront for us. That said, we did vote on it. It was close. We voted 4-3 against recommending it. And now I think Chris has done a really good job of discussing the positives of this. So I'll just give you as best as I can the reasons why some, 4 of the planning board members voted against.
And just for clarity, you voted against all 3 articles?
Yes,
4-3?
well, but you really have to take them as a group.
True.
In theory, you could pass the definitions and not the change to the use table, but that would create some problems of its own.
Yes, it would.
Which doesn't mean that this issue can't get addressed in the future, and probably will be to some degree. But here are the things that we used to come to the conclusion that we did, and it was pretty much uniform across the 4 no votes. There's some variation. First of all, we found some difficulty in pinning down definitions. Now, this is always true with any definitions you have in bylaws. They're never, ever perfect. However, we did have some very interesting discussions about, well, what is manufacturing with a retail delivery versus what is distribution, because the definition didn't really break that down terribly well. Distribution center paints a picture in everybody's mind. But the thing that's really the problem that we're talking about is truck traffic. And that's the bottom line. So we saw difficulty in pinning down those definitions, and thought that they could use some more work and consideration, which gets to my second point. The problem of regulating use versus impact. The impact we have here is a traffic impact. We have good reason to believe that distribution centers create a bunch of traffic. In fact, we get anything that looks even remotely like this, we wind up with a traffic study associated with the application. But a number of us feel that we would be much better off trying to regulate the amount of traffic, that's size of truck, number of trips, hours of operation, things like that, rather than going after the particular use. I mean, we're more concerned with what goes on the outside of the building and coming and going than we are what goes on inside the building. Third is our desire to not preclude opportunities, and I think one of your members brought that up, which is not to say that we think distribution centers or things like it all over town would be a good idea. But I think to preclude something that might, in some conceivable application, situation, and location, be reasonable is probably probably something of a problem. And I hope I'm representing properly what the other members of the board said. And finally, we have the major business complex portion of 195. It's Article 11, which basically says you got to get a special permit for anything over 20,000 square feet. And that's specifically in there because large projects often entail traffic. And precisely the kinds of things that we're worried about here. We've already got that mechanism in place. It is a special permit, and the planning board can block a project if it's simply inappropriate based on our special permitting criteria. And I don't want to say too much, but situations have come before us that represent just this kind of situation. So we've already got the power to do this, to regulate the deployment center kind of use. And so for those reasons, it was 4-3. Now, I will say it wouldn't be a disaster if, from a planning board perspective, if this were to pass. And it wouldn't be a disaster if it didn't. But we feel that the majority of the board felt that the negatives somewhat outweighed the positives. So there you got it. Any questions? Okay. And you can watch the couple of sessions that we had on this if you want to get a little more detail on what people were thinking.
Okay. Thank you.
And if I could just add one more thing.
Certainly.
I did hear all of those objections throughout the presentations and me working with the planning board. And that is one of the reasons why I drafted this FAQ. And some of those concerns are addressed in the FAQ document as well. The special business complex, absolutely true that the planning board has that power. But there are some cases, and I gave a few examples already, where the town has seen fit that we need to go above and beyond that special business complex, special permit, and just say, no, we don't want that in our town. Asphalt plants, things like that, heavy manufacturing. The other suggestion from the planning board that came up was overlays. And so I did address that also in the FAQ. One of the things that that I would encourage the board, and I did encourage the board to do, is continue to pursue the overlay plan if they want to do, maybe allowing some of these distribution centers if they want in other zones or anything like that. But again, we need to start from somewhere. And one of the things that we saw in one of the current projects that's before the board is that the overlays don't prevent something that is allowed by the underlying use. So if we do an overlay to prevent something in one part of town, because the definition of warehouse is so broad, the distribution centers could still come in under the underlying zoning. So although an overlay would be a great addition to this, it wouldn't be able to replace what this is intended to do. And that's one of my concerns with the overlay proposal from the planning board, is that even with the overlay, projects of large distribution centers would still be able to come in under the underlying zoning and not even need to do the overlay. So those are some of the points I did want to point out in the FAQ that I did also consider, but there are reasons why I didn't include everything from the planning board as well.
Any additional questions? All right. Thank you both. Right. Moving along, we have a review and discussion of Article 24, the Brook Walk easement. And there are members of the planning board here this evening, as we are well aware. I don't believe we have a additional presentation from anyone regarding it. We put on there simply if we had questions from any planning board members regarding the Brook Walk easement, as we're going to vote on it. I know just before we make an exit, we have a couple of other zoning-related articles that are on the town meeting warrant. One of them being the acceptance of a Brook Walk easement.
They have not been presented to the planning board.
They have not, okay.
So we cannot give you a collective
Discussion regarding,
discussion on that.
same with the other two.
Yeah, they didn't come forward in the form of zoning bylaw change, which is
Of course, okay.
the hearing. Yeah. It's part of the Untitled development, so it's, yeah.
part of your permit.
Yeah, it's part of the permit. Exactly.
And all this is accepting that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I just, Mike, if it's just,
So that is actually an approved part of the
Okay.
plan for the Odd Fellows.
and as it's being presented, if you don't mind stepping up just for a second, just for a quick question, as it's being presented in the warrant that's being presented to be voted on by town meeting, there are no changes to that or any additions to that that you're aware of that would you'd have concerns with in accepting this Brook easement.
I have to apologize, but in that it has not been presented to us and I haven't seen it, I can't answer that question.
Ms. Arroway, could you identify yourself? for this
Nancy
announcement?
Arroway.
Thank you.
65 Littleton Road and Planning Board member.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Well, I'll make short work of the next two. On the article. We have, next on the agenda was the review and discussion of Article 25, Charles Way easement. As we saw, I believe it was either today or yesterday, one of the two. There's going to be a special town meeting regarding an adjustment to what is being proposed for that. That'll be the same night as fall town meeting. And it means we'll have another meeting to discuss that, because it has not been, it was on our agenda, it hasn't been posted yet. We'll have to discuss our, review and discuss that likely next week.
I was gonna say, not the night of.
Oh, no. Next, it would be.
Made that clear last week.
Yes, no. So we will not, we'll bypass that item on the agenda because it's no longer being presented as a part of the fall town warrant for fall town meeting. And then this extreme acceptance regarding Nabnasset Drive, I had reached out just to get contact information. I haven't gotten that for that particular article. We could certainly do that. We could postpone any discussion about that until next, because we are going to be meeting next week anyway. If that comes forward, and we don't have to vote on that this evening, it would be a vote prior to town meeting, and it would still meet our deadline if we were to postpone a vote on, say, that particular article, just with a little more information. We can certainly do that, but there's nothing to present, per se, on that particular article this evening. So what we will do next is go into public comment. I don't know if you have any public comment regarding anything that's been presented this evening or anything that's presented in the warrant articles. Seeing none and seeing none in the Zoom room, we'll go right ahead into the discussion of the warrant articles and vote of recommendations on same.
Could we have a 3-minute break?
Certainly.
Thank you.
We'll take just a brief
Just a quick
recess.
help, right?
It's a good idea.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Sneak by you.
Can you get by?
right. So, we review and discussion of the 2022 Fall Annual Town Meeting warrant articles. Kathy, you feel up to?
I brought my big jug.
You did, excellent. All right, our first one is report of town officers and committees. There's no vote, no action on that. Then we have, I have to go. Bear with me while I go through. We have a consent agenda just for our purposes. I find typically we do vote in the same manner on these articles. However, if we don't, I'll certainly break them out and in our discussion regarding the consent agenda, when we present the articles, I'll indicate whether or not there was a differing vote on our recommendation for these articles. The Article 2 is Cemetery Improvement and Development Fund.
Make a motion that we recommend approval of this warrant article, moving that the town transfer $40,000 from the sale of graves and lots account to the Cemetery Improvement and Development Fund.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
Discussion? No, pretty self-explanatory. And every year article. I'll take I'll motion a second. No further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that's 7 in favor, none against.
Make a motion that
Article
we
3?
recommend Article 3, moving that the town appropriate $7,229.10 that was received by the town from the Commonwealth Transportation Infrastructure Fund to fund traffic safety improvements.
Do a second?
Second.
Discussion? This is a transfer article with the 2016 Act, 20 cents per ride. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or
Aye.
abstentions? Seeing none, 7 in favor. Article 4, Sewer Construction Stabilization Fund.
I make a motion that we recommend approval of Article 4, moving that the town transfer $73,719 from free cash to the Sewer Construction Stabilization Fund.
I second it.
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any, no nays or abstentions? 7 in favor. Article 5, Affordable Housing Stabilization Fund.
I make a motion that we recommend approval of Article 5, moving that the town transfer $40,000 that has been received by the town under the town's inclusionary housing zoning bylaw to the Affordable Housing Stabilization Fund.
I second it.
Thank you. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No nays or
Aye.
abstentions? 7 in favor. Article 6.
I make a recommendation that we approve, or I make a motion
There's
that
no
we.
action on this article.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And we don't expect any action on this article? Okay. No action on Article 7? No action on Article 8? Any? Okay. Just want to make sure nothing popped up. Article 9, Statewide Opioid Settlement Abatement Fund.
I make a motion that we recommend approval of Article 9, moving that the town raise and appropriate $139,844 to be expended by the Board of Health in accordance with the Mass Attorney General's statewide opioid settlement abatement funds allocation agreement with certain Massachusetts political subdivisions.
I second it.
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's 7 in favor, no nays or abstentions. Article, it jumped. Oh, no, it didn't. Article 10, School Department Professional Support Personnel.
I'll make a motion that we recommend Article 10, School Department Professional Support. I move that the town amend the vote taken under Article 5 on the April 25, 22 spring and annual town meeting by raising and appropriating the sum of $250,000 to defray charges for the operation of the Chelmsford Public Schools for the fiscal period of July 1, 22 through June 30, 2023 for the purposes of providing a livable wage to the school department's professional support staff employees.
Second it.
Discussion?
Well, I think their presentation was very well done, professional, heartfelt. I'm going to have to vote no because of the, appropriation of the funds, and also it seems like they're in, contract negotiations, and that process should probably continue. Oh,
Yeah, there was, I think a lot of discussion about, where the funds are coming from and the fact that they are still in negotiation and mediation. And the fact that, as we all know, because we review the budget every year, the Chelmsford Public Schools have budget line autonomy. So we vote a number up or down, and then how that money is applied is based upon the recommendations of the of Dr. Lane as superintendent with the school committee and their vote of the budget. And I'm just not sure it's appropriate for us to get involved in that, especially where we're looking at potentially one-time use funds for a one-year purpose. It concerns me.
Does it also set a precedent?
It would certainly.
It could.
It could, yeah. Other bodies come forward and say, okay, well, we want to ask the town to amend the budget so that we have funds available for our negotiation purposes, and therefore it kind of takes the discussion away from collective bargaining or away from the negotiations that are taking place and puts it straight in front of town meeting.
I mean, they do a lot of great work, and look, I certainly would love to see them get whatever they can, but I can't support it as.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I do understand their position. I do understand their argument, but again, I'm just not sure if this is the correct way to go forward with it.
So what I found interesting about the discussion earlier was that it's only for this fiscal year, 22-23. I'm not sure which one said it, Kathleen or Kathy, that the following 2 years is already taken care of, so that funding in there is already set. So I found that questionable.
Well, it relates to the contract cycle.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree with you, and for me, and certainly I accept the numbers as presented. I mean, I haven't looked and verified them myself, which is a problem for me, but I'll accept the presentation as presented. It does appear that they are seriously underpaid with regard to comparable districts when you equalize the working hours and so forth. The thing for me is they're still in negotiation, okay, or they're at arbitration point, I guess. And I just don't feel comfortable recommending any action that potentially interferes with that process. I think that process should play out, and then it should be dealt with. And it also, I think, sends a message to the school committee, that, hey, you guys haven't handled this properly, and now the folks have felt a need to come before a town meeting and essentially do a workaround the arbitration process. So I have an issue with that. So I'll vote no as well.
Any further discussion?
So, yeah, I'll just reiterate, what all of you have already said. And I am a huge supporter of the schools, especially, in light of COVID. I do realize that there are a lot of kids who have been left behind. There is a gap that needs to be caught up. The teachers, the paras, everybody I know, went above and beyond to make sure that our kids in Chelmsford were properly educated during that time. They were very difficult times, and I certainly appreciate it. And I've always been a supporter of the schools, but I agree with you. At this point, I just don't think is the right approach. I think we need to work out whatever that is, and if they need more money, then if the school department needs more money, then Jay and the school committee can approach town meeting for more funds.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? All against?
Aye.
Nay.
Any nays or any abstentions? Hearing none. 7 against. Article 11, roadway and sideway construction.
I'll make a motion that we recommend for acceptance Article 11, moving that the town transfer $1,500,000 from free cash to fund roadway and sidewalk construction.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Can we spend it all? We can,
Oh, yeah.
in the year, obviously. Okay.
All right.
How much has the cost gone up just in terms of materials and?
Probably talking 20%.
20%?
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? None. 7 in favor. All right. Article 12, sewer capital improvements.
I'll make a motion that we recommend Article 12. I move that the town transfer $500,000 from the sewer enterprise fund retained earnings to examine the condition of the oldest section of the town's sewer force mains.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays or abstentions? Hearing none. 7 in favor. Article 13, PFAS remediation.
I make a motion that we recommend approval of Article 13, moving that the town transfer $254,500 from free cash to remediate PFAS in the soil and groundwater in the town's highway yard located at 54 Richardson Road.
Second it.
Discussion?
I have an odd question.
Sure.
How the water departments in Chelmsford are separate entities. Do they have a stabilization fund? Do they have free cash? What have they contributing?
Well,
To this.
so the issue that we're dealing with here is it's a contamination from the town into a watershed, and so for them to go and say, for us to go to say to the water district, hey, town's contaminated your wells. Oh, are you going to pay for it to take care of it? That's kind of the situation you're dealing with.
Well, I kind of understand that, but in general,
Well, in general, they're taking care of the problem themselves otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Chelmsford Water District is dealing with it, which doesn't have this, not the site. They're dealing with just general PFAS in general, so yes. They're spending big money putting in treatment plants in the millions of dollars, yes. They have free cash and so forth as well, yes.
okay. And is that information only ever presented at their board meetings? I mean, and is that like some document that a person who's curious might be able to look up online?
Yeah, they have annual meetings as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
The short answer is yes.
Okay. just asking, you know.
Well, that's a good question.
No, it's a good question. But yeah, because of the determined, and I've seen a bunch of these presentations from the select board that have been made, because of the source, determined source of this particular contamination, really is a town issue to take care of.
Okay.
So I have a question. So this is funding a continuing project. So this is not the start of, because it doesn't seem nearly enough to be the start of any type of project.
Yeah, Paul, if you don't mind.
This will get us through the end of this fiscal year. We'll be back at Springtown meeting with another article
Okay,
for next year.
thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, 7 in favor. Article 14, free cash to reduce the tax levy.
I make a motion that we recommend to approve Article 14, free cash, moving that the town transfer from free cash $1 million to reduce the fiscal year 2023 property tax levy.
I second it.
Discussion.
I
This is
still
the-
stand with my stance that I feel like, it's too bad that we've gone down this road, because now we're gonna have to continue this forever, because otherwise the taxpayer is gonna feel a big impact on their tax bill. So I feel $1 million could be used in better ways, and I think we've set ourselves up for a long-term problem with this, but given that we've done it, I'll probably vote yes.
Yeah, this was a perennial article that was proposed for years, and for years we voted against it.
Right.
Until the pandemic, in which we had a split vote on how we would approach it based upon the additional burden that was placed upon people because of the pandemic. And then last year, I believe it was your amendment, Kathy, that reduced it from 2 million that was proposed to the 1 million. And so there we have the 1 million as these quote unquote compromise from last fall town meeting. And I agree. It's we've always looked at it as one-time funds and how to best apply them and where they would go. There are many other pulls and requests and requirements we need to meet within the stricture of the budget. But now that this has become a situation where it's being proposed every year and it has been applied every year, to take that away causes the very thing that we were concerned about when we voted against it all those years. It's the one-time jump, if you will, because not only do you not have the free cash going back to reduce, but you have the loss of additional funds being used in the next year, so it does a double jump as opposed to a flat adjustment. So with that, I think, as I voted last year, I'm going to vote to support it again this year because the barn door's been opened.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify what you said, I just want to understand completely. What you're talking about is if in the following year we have minimal free cash, okay, the impact, and Kathy as well, the impact will be felt by the taxpayer in a larger amount than it would have been if we had not done this and the free cash amount had been averaged over the 2 years.
Yes.
Is that an accurate
That's an
summary
accurate
of what you
summary.
said? Okay, thank you. And that has happened in previous years. I can recall over the past 20 years at least 2 instances where that actually has happened. So just so that folks are aware, you get $1 million back on the tax rate this year. Next year, if we find ourselves in a situation where we do not have much free cash, and it has happened, then you're going to pay for it in the subsequent year, just so that folks understand. Yep.
That's all we've been
Yep.
saying, yeah. Any further discussion?
I don't know. To me, it's not how you should manage your money, and I'm a saver. I can't vote in favor of this. It's not to me, it's fundamentally not the right thing to do, because with everything going up the way it is, I'd like to have a little bit more money in the cushion than what there is. And there are so many other pulls for spending in this town that I don't need my $35 or whatever I would get on this back. I'd rather it.
7 down the average.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I certainly appreciate that position, Anita, and that's the argument we've made in the past.
That's a wonderful argument.
Yep. The concern is that, again, the whatever colloquialism you want to use, the barn door's open, the toothpaste is out of the tube, the bell's been rung. It's happened. This has been kind of the compromised number that we've discussed.
Thank you,
in
Mrs.
the
Duffett.
past. Yeah, we can thank Mrs. Duffett for that.
Yeah.
It's providing some of that relief, and the arguments for people that have been in favor of this have always been that does the taxpayer know how best to use their funds? And the answer is, I don't know. So I think because of the way it's been in the past, I'll probably vote in favor of this. But I completely understand your position,
Yep.
Anita.
And one more comment, Mr. Chair, and if the town manager wants to chime in. Watching selectmen's meetings for the past 2 or 3 years and seeing the actions at town meeting, I'm getting the impression that this, assuming we have the free cash, I'm assuming that this is just going to be an annual request, and this appears to be in line with the general wishes of the select board. And the town manager, I think, is presenting this article in part because that seems to be the desire of the select board. If we have a significant amount of free cash, that some of that should be returned to the taxpayer. So I guess my question is to the town manager, do you see this as a recurring, is this going to become normal? Every year we're going to get this request, assuming we have whatever the number is, $2 million, $2.5 million in free cash. I know that's a difficult question, but do the best you
I think
can.
the short answer is yes. I mean, as you said, it happened when we had a large amount and during a pandemic where we were trying relief. I think the problem we're coming into is probably maybe just as bad with the inflation we're dealing with right now. I mean, what you're hearing about the electricity, energy prices this coming winter and everything else, it just seems like we're lurching from one bad consumer environment to another. And so I think, and then the other problem is if their goal has been, as you know, to try to reduce the tax classification to, from the 20% that they're on now down, then you can't do this either because that'll only exacerbate that even further. So I think given the current composition and philosophy of the board, I think the answer to your question would be
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
So has the free cash been certified? The 3.4? Not yet.
Not yet.
So,
That's a very
As soon
good
as we get
question.
it certified, you will get the email from the Department of Revenue. Again, as Darlene mentioned last week, our town accountant, their goal is to provide it for us in a timely manner, which should be by now, but we're
Sure.
waiting for it any day.
okay. So I think the $70 isn't moving anybody's needle, to tell you quite honestly, and I don't know if people can manage their money or not. I do know, or I do feel, and I think this way, that the level of inflation that we see is kind of here to stay. And I think the level to which that we're going to have free cash next year is going to be significantly diminished simply because of these other pulls that we're talking about. And the, I call them the things that go bump in the night, right, that are going to have to focus these, the monetary bucket of money here. So I am on the fence. $70 is a lot to someone. Over, 4 quarters, it's not too terribly much. And it would be a shame for next year that we wouldn't be able to give them anything, right? Because we have a small amount, and since it's not certified, I mean to belabor my point, what's the likelihood that it's going to reduce enough where it's going to say where we're not going to have anything in there at all because we've already approved other things to use the free cash for?
The likelihood that the free cash number will not be certified it could happen, but it's pretty remote.
So I think Darlene said that it's usually approved for something less than what's presented. So I don't know, is that 5%? Is it 50, 20?
It doesn't.
Couple
It doesn't
percent?
vary that much.
Okay,
No.
okay, it's off just a little bit. Okay, all right, thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All against?
Aye.
Aye.
so that's, and any
5-2.
nays, any abstentions, so it's.
I'm going to abstain just
Abstain.
because
Yeah.
you know how I actually feel, but
Fair enough. So we have 4-1 on that vote. Just for clarity purposes, Pam. Thanks. All right. Moving along, free cash to the General Stabilization Fund.
I make a motion that we recommend approval of Article 15, moving that the town transfer from free cash $621,634 to the General Stabilization Fund.
I second it.
Is this money earmarked to something specific? The number's very specific.
It's the remaining funds.
Ah, got it.
So usually, if there's an adjustment, so say,
Action.
Okay,
for
yeah,
instance,
it's a reconciling line.
the previous article is voted down.
I see.
Then you would have that money available to put in free cash. So it would be, instead of being 621, it'd be $1,621,000.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Any discussion? We haven't. I'm sorry. We have a second, correct?
I've seconded it.
Yes. Thank. I'm just making sure.
Apologize.
No. I think you did. I was making sure. I was confirming. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. 7 in favor. No nays or abstentions. Article 16, Historical Commission Property Inventory Program.
Excuse me, I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of Article 16, moving that the town transfer $15,000 from the Community Preservation Fund General Reserve to the contract with professional preservationists to perform historic inventories of properties across the community.
Do a second?
I second it.
Discussion? I think they've been looking to do something like similar to this. I think it's an important. I think, Paul, you had mentioned that it would take care of into the 1800s. It needs to be done. Having someone do it to take care of it, I think it's a good idea. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's 7 in favor, no nays or abstentions. Article 17, the Senior Citizen Property Tax Work-Off Abatement Program.
I make a motion that we recommend approval of Article 17, moving that the town amend its vote taken under Article 14 on the April 27th, 2015 spring annual town meeting pertaining to the town's acceptance of the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5K, which authorizes the town to establish a senior citizens property tax work-off abatement program by eliminating the cap on the total amount of abatements that may be granted under this program of $100,000 in any given year.
I second it.
Discussion?
I think it's a great program for the town, and I hope that, they'll be able to have as many people as possible participate.
I feel the same way.
Yeah. I agree. Removing the cap allows for that full amount that's allowed under law. Of course, if we discussed, if we get a huge influx of participants, we'll address that next year, I'm sure.
And I'm going to go back to something the town manager said previously that really makes me feel very good. It's a little off topic, but it's related. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the town manager said we currently don't have eligibility requirements for this program. So that tells me that our citizens are pretty honest and honorable. I don't see that is being abused, even though there is nothing codified that restricts them. So that just makes me very happy that people are treating this program as it's intended to be treated without being regulated into treating it that way.
Yep.
So.
That's a fair assessment. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No nays or abstentions, 7 in favor. Article 18, increase in senior citizen property tax exemption.
I make a motion that we recommend approval of Article 18, moving that the town increase the amount of local property tax exemption for seniors provided for under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 41C, from $500 per fiscal year to $1,000 per fiscal year.
Second it.
Discussion? This is codified.
I'm speaking as an assessor. This is long overdue. Long overdue. You don't know how long that cap has been in place at $500. That's all I'll say.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, 7 in favor. Article 19, Charter Amendment, Section 6-7, Annual Audit.
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of Article 19 as presented.
As written.
Thank you.
Do I have a
As written,
second?
right.
Do I have a
I
second?
second it.
Thank you. Discussion?
I think this is a great idea. And I would almost, someone who gets audited, and I'm audited every quarter and every year, and I deal with Big Four, this will save the town money, because having to transition from one audit to another is always, it costs a lot of money to do so. I also, for public companies, all we're required by the PCAOB is to make sure that the partners rotate. Like, we can still have the audit team still work on it, just as long as the partners rotate once every 5 years. So the fact that we're rotating the staff, my only concern about that is I hope that, like, the audit firms that we're utilizing have the staff to rotate. Again, that does cause some inefficiencies, but I think it's better than what we're currently doing.
Yeah, I think this cleans up a concern that has been addressed through this article. You need continuity, and you need a little bit more continuity than every 3 years. So, I think this makes just sense. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none. 7 in favor. Article 20, exempting deputy chief from civil service.
Make a motion that we recommend approval of Article 20, moving that the town authorize the select board to petition the general court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to enact a special act to exempt the position of deputy fire chief from Chapter 31 of the Mass General Laws as set forth below.
I second it.
Discussion?
I found the entire conversation very interesting and enlightening. I'm going to be in favor of this because it seems like it will give the chief the opportunity to pick the person that is best qualified for the position.
So it sounds like to me, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, he still has the ability to do that through the folks that pass the test, and so it sounds like he doesn't necessarily have to pick the top performer, the top test taker, but it does sound like excuse me, there's a level of administrative costs that go on top of that. Is that correct?
So to clarify, I do have to, if I choose not to take the top test taker
Yeah.
through civil service, I have to issue them the reasons why I'm bypassing them, and they have the ability to challenge it,
Right.
to
Okay.
go to arbitrate, to challenge it.
Okay.
So I could be overruled.
And who is the board that would overrule you?
That will go to the Civil Service Commission.
Okay.
They would make that decision.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you.
That could take months.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask him a question?
If you have a question, yeah.
Do you anticipate any morale issues if we vote in favor of this?
Certainly, I think, as you saw with the union, yes, they are opposed to this. But there are some members of my command staff that are in favor of it. So
You can handle it.
I hope so.
Yep.
That's what I want to hear.
So what's the ramification, sir? If you start having morale issues, are you thinking that they would be so severe enough that you would see firefighters leaving
No,
your department?
I don't anticipate that. No, I think, once if we choose to go this, again, this position, the deputy chief, is so important. It's out of the union, the non-union position. So, yeah, we may disagree on how we select that position, but I think we have a job to do. I think we both understand the importance of our job, and we will perform the mission of the job.
Okay,
I don't think that will change.
thank you.
And I think that's been the history of the town
Yeah.
in all of our departments.
Mhm.
You know, you win some, you lose some.
Yep.
At the end of the day, we have a job to do, and we're dedicated to that, so.
Thank you.
So what I heard from the discussion and in the questions both of the proponent and the town and the representative of the union and the union's position is that while there is testing that occurs, and it's a rigorous testing, don't get me wrong, it's a lot of preparation, a lot of testing for this particular test, for this assessment. So the qualifications, the book qualifications, the assessment qualifications are done in order to determine the best test taker, but there's another level of compatibility that's not necessarily addressed through that particular assessment. And that would be one of my concerns, is whether or not it's going to create an issue at that level. And where it is already shown to be successful on the police side, I tend to lean towards approving, or recommending approving, rather, this article, just because it's not just about who's the best test taker in the assessment, but who's going to work best in that position supporting the chief. And I think there's a level of evaluation that needs to be done there, level of compatibility needs to occur that may not necessarily occur through a testing. And I think this article is kind of unique because of just the circumstance of events that occurred. I don't think this discussion would be being even potentially had there been not enough captains to test civil service. This might have been a discussion later on. I don't know. But where there's a seeking parity in the deputy position for the fire command, as there is in the police command, I understand the ask, and I understand why, and I think it makes sense.
I'll go out on a limb here and make some observations, and I would hope that if I say anything that isn't correct, the town manager would correct me. My observation over the past several months is that the town, in the guise of both the select board and the town manager, I would say, and I would assume also the chief, are very interested in moving toward a process which is called, for lack of a better term, succession planning. And if the town feels that is in the best interest of the town, to have a situation where the head of the department can participate in designing a plan and identifying the next potential candidate to take his job, that is going to be very, very difficult to achieve if the position below that chief's position is in fact encumbered by civil service. It's going to be very difficult to do that. And this is just my perception of how the process works. So if the town is moving in that direction, and we already have the example, as the chairman has said, in the police department, and that's apparently worked pretty well for the last several years, I would be in favor of supporting this article in support of the notion that we're going to move to this model of succession planning for our top positions. So I think this supports that.
I'm going to vote in favor of this article and support this. I've managed a lot of people, and I'm not a big fan of the test driving leadership roles, right? Like, someone can be really, really smart and extremely excellent at their role, but they may not be a leader, right? Like, they may not be the right person for the next role. So I think there's a lot that goes into selecting the, whether it's the top or the number 2 role. that goes beyond just knowing and being able to take a test well. And I think the weight, for me, the fact that it's weighed 80%, I'm not comfortable with that. And I get it that I'm not, I'm in industry and we do things differently, but just my experience with managing and promoting people and seeing them what they're good at and what they're not, I just think that doesn't necessarily always align.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, 7 in favor. Article 21, zoning bylaw amendment, definition of warehouse. And actually, well, you know what? We'll take this separately. Yes. Yes, we will take these separately.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of Article 21, zoning bylaw amendment, definition of warehouse as presented, written.
Thank you.
I second it.
Discussion.
Okay, I'll start.
Sure.
The way I see it, and certainly I hope I've understood the presentation, and I've watched most of the planning board discussion on this as well. This particular article is simply a recognition of reality and updating our zoning bylaws, the way I see it. And you have the reality of 724 fulfillment distribution centers, which are not really warehouses. The two functions are different. And as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, somebody please, but as I understand it, our zoning bylaw, and this is the reason for the article, does not accommodate that. And I think just on the basis of we need to recognize the reality that a distribution center is different from a warehouse, we need to change the zoning to do that. So I support this article.
Ditto.
Can I say something since
Yeah, you may.
I feel like it's been, so, I've got concerns, and I put this all on from when we had the other article brought in. 129 is, our entrance point to Chelmsford, right, from, Route 3 coming up. And my concern, and now we're seeing it, is once you start building warehouses on 129, especially that prime office space, you're not going to get tenants, office tenants. And there is two industries that are growing in Massachusetts. One of them is the biotech life sciences, and the other is this Amazon distribution centers. They are not compatible on the same street. And we need to decide what we want 129 to be. Our vacancy rates have gone down from the pre-pandemic of 19%, we're down to 11%. Press Cafe is coming on board at the end of this year. We have good things happening. Bill Rugged just secured a biotech. I think they're renting 92,000 square feet. Bedford is now getting some biotechs in their space. Burlington is seeing it. It's coming up. Rents in Boston are over $100 a square foot. So you're seeing these companies come out to the suburbs. Also, you have to play COVID, which had a lot of people move out to the suburbs. The state has spent a lot of money trying to promote life sciences. We're considered a platinum community. I think not doing this, we run the risk of shunning that industry out of Chelmsford. Also, we have IA all over the place. We have IA, Lockheed Martin, across from Bayham is IA. If they decide to leave tomorrow, that neighborhood, which is a really nice neighborhood, should be doing and fighting what the folks on River Neck Road have been fighting for the last year. And the stress of having to go to every planning board meeting, having to, I can't tell you how many emails, how many phone calls, how many neighbors who in that neighborhood, and the amount of stress that it's caused them. So I think this is the right thing to do. If we have an opportunity of something that is over 75 square feet, 25,000 square feet, we can negotiate. Puts the town in a better negotiating position. And if we find that there is a spot that doesn't, bother anybody, and it works for the town, then it's a simple, you go to town meeting, bring the proposal, we say we're going to do an overlay to allow it in this area. But at least we have the control and the power to drive that, and we're not at a disadvantage. So there's, while some of the members on the planning board said, yes, this is, traffic and stuff like that, that's part of it. But it's also more of a strategic thinking, where do we want and how do we see our town developing, and making sure we keep all the avenues open, and have the flexibility. And I think, Chris did a great job in doing the small, medium, and large.
Okay. So, Anita, just to jump in here, I know you're talking. I know these kind of all connect.
Yep.
We're talking about the definition of warehouse.
Right.
On this particular one, we're taking them separately. So I know we're going to talk about the other ones, and I let you.
She's going to tell you to hold
I
that
let her.
thought.
I let her keep going
Right, for the
because
next articles.
All right.
Yeah.
I was doing all three. I'll stop right there.
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. So I do think we need clarity on definitions.
Mhm.
It's good to have clarity in definitions for zoning purposes. I'm okay with adjusting it. And just to be fair, I know this is not the current definition, and so I think what we should do is accept this as it's been presented as a friendly amendment, if you will, to the language, because the presentation that was given tonight is not the language that's currently up here. It was slightly different to address concerns and discussions that were had with members of the public and the planning board.
Should I change my motion?
Actually, yes. We probably should table that motion and bring a separate motion or bring a new motion.
I will table my previous motion.
Yep.
And I will make a motion to recommend Article 21 with the friendly, how would I phrase that? Because I don't have the.
So to, I guess, would be to accept recommend approval of Article 21, zoning bylaw amendment, definition of warehouse, as amended by the petitioner.
As amended by the petitioner.
There you go.
I second that.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none. Article 22. Again, there's been adjustments to this based upon discussion, so it'll be as amended by the petitioner.
I make a motion that we recommend Article 22, zoning bylaw amendment, definition of distribution center as
amended by petitioner.
As amended by the petitioner.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? I think this flows hand in hand, building net area. So this is where, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a separate one for small, medium, and large now, as opposed to a total discussion of larger than 50,000. So there's the 20, and I don't have the. I would pull it up, but I don't want to lose this, quite frankly.
Right.
But it was just for clarification purposes.
20?
Small was up to 20. Medium was
Up to
20 to 75?
75.
yeah,
And then 75 and over? You got it?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. right. I have no issue with defining those. Sam, for the discussion that you mentioned, you've seen most of the planning board discussions regarding this. What was the concern about the defining of these particular square footage?
I think Anita can probably answer that better than I can, because she was there.
Well, that's true too. Yeah.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, so I think, part of the question was, you have the 20,000, which was aligned to go with the special permit. I think there's a lot of discussion around, making sure that anybody that, especially with e-commerce, if stores wanted to do some sort of distribution, you still have that small business and was least impactful. You still wanted to allow that. And what they were really trying to target was anything that was the large, the UPSs of the world, the ones that would be the most destructive. Nancy was the one that brought this up, and I don't think there was any opposition about putting it into these buckets. It gave the planning board more flexibility.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
These are abstentions? Hearing none. Article 23, the zoning bylaw amendment, and again, this use regulation table has been adjusted to show that there is planning board approval required for small and medium and not allowed for large. And there's an additional, and that's only an IA. And then the additional CC zoning would have small available by planning board special permit.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion that we recommend approval of Article 23 zoning bylaw amendment, use and regulation table as amended by the presenter.
I second it.
Discussion?
I can't support this article because I think excluding the large facility is a mistake.
Okay. Do you care to expand as to why, John?
I buy that there is more traffic. I don't buy the argument that they're low-paying jobs, because a job is a job in this environment. Whether they can fill them or not is a different discussion. But to say that, it's attracting low-paying jobs, I think it's just the wrong argument to try and sell here. What we're saying is that we want Amazon to stay out of Chelmsford. I'm not sure that's the right answer.
Okay.
It's a valid point.
I think this lends to kind of your discussion, Anita, about what type of businesses we would want going into these particular locations. And my only concern, I guess, is yes, vacancy rates have gone down, but they still exist, and a vacant building's a vacant building, and so. Yes, we've tried to style and to adjust and to nurture that particular, especially, I know it's not just 129. I sometimes bristle at attempts to prevent certain things, where it would be, I would be a little bit more comfortable if it were, say, a planning board special permit that would be required for that particular use, where there's still oversight and review and discussion, but there'd be the possibility, not necessarily the limitation and prevention of that particular thing being had. To proactively cut off a certain business is always slightly concerning to me, and I get the arguments against it. Don't get me wrong, but that would be my concern with the use table as presented.
I agree with that.
I see your points on that. However, I think I don't know about low-paying jobs versus, better-paying jobs, but I think the value to the tax base of a building that is a warehouse distribution, that building, I don't believe and Sam, you can help me here. I think a office space that people are coming and going. You have fixtures in the office space that you get extra money for, or whatever. I think that base revenue to the town of Chelmsford is more than a building that is basically, comings and goings and storage facilities. So I think the base, I think it's better tax revenue wise to have an office building.
No, I certainly understand that, the value
correct.
of that particular use. What I'm saying is that I prefer, I think, to see it under a special permit by planning board. Still has to go through the process, but it doesn't prevent someone from presenting a potential situation in which they would want to move.
So just to remember the
Sure.
chart that he presented, it was like small, medium, large, and then under large, it was no all the way across.
Correct.
Right.
And that for small and medium, it was,
So for medium, it was, for IA, for industrial areas.
it was
would
planning
be
board.
planning board, special permit.
Yeah.
And then for small, it was both CC and IA.
Yeah.
For special permit. And so, again, it doesn't allow it by right. It requires a special permit in order to be issued. And granting a special permit, there would be conditions and review and discussion and approval needed by the planning board. Yes, it does require that if you deny certain things, you have to have a defensible position. I understand that, because you do open yourself up to litigation if you deny something and you don't have a valid reason to deny it. But what I'm saying is, if the space is available and it goes unused forever, and there's no ability for anyone to present something like this at all, it's just denied across the board. That is my only concern.
The town, we did do that for the marijuana.
We did,
Yeah.
and I voted in favor the second time around, and it was denied again. So I'm gonna keep my position about that particular
I'm
use.
so happy that both of us are so consistent in our opinions.
There you go.
But I did want to ask one other thing in the gentleman's presentation. He talked about Acton, and I can't remember if that was just in the description of the words or if Acton has also totally denied distribution
No, they allow it in some zones.
in some zones.
yeah.
And is that allowed based on planning board special permit or just?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is allowed, I believe by right, in some of the very higher end industrial areas, but special permit in most of their zones.
So it's even a step further than what we're discussing right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's by right would be by right, obviously.
But I think the town of Acton has more options relative to developable land than we do.
True.
And I think that needs to be taken into consideration. And Mr. Chairman, I completely agree with you. I would normally be inclined to just not take the option off the table, okay? Because relying on the good intentions and good work and discretion of the planning board, they're going to do the right thing. And I want to move forward with that mindset. But I think the conditions in Chelmsford are, the potential development conditions in Chelmsford are different than you see in the town of Acton. I don't think we have the options that they have to site a facility like this with minimal impact on neighborhood. I think Acton has more flexibility. Other towns that are around us, same thing. The fact that we are built out to the extent that we are, and that any potential redevelopment, as Anita said, for example, on 129, that's already in the mix. So I would be more comfortable, I think, under normal conditions of agreeing with the chairman here with the PB. But in this particular case, I'm going to vote to support this article.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against?
Aye.
All right, that's 4-3. 4-3. 4-3 in favor.
In favor.
Sorry.
It is hard to do.
Brook, Article 24, Brook Walk easement.
I'd like to make a motion that we recommend Article 24, the Brook Walk easement, moving that the town accept an easement as presented.
I second it, as presented.
Discussion? Yeah, this hasn't changed from what was required. I don't, okay, yeah, yeah, I'm fine with it.
Been reviewed by council.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. All right, so council's reviewed it, it's as it's going to be, and as it was discussed prior with the initial permits. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, 7 in favor. Article 25 is no longer, I believe we're taking no action on that one, and we'll be here next week to discuss the special town meeting warrant regarding this particular item. And then finally, or you won't be here, that's true too.
That's true.
Yeah. Article 26, street acceptance. May I, because we haven't, I did reach out to the planning board chair, asking for contact information. I haven't gotten clarity on that for the person that particular that is dealing with this property, to have an opportunity to speak regarding it. I will reach out again, and because we're already meeting next week, I think I would say I'd like to I will not table it, but to hold off voting until next week on this particular item, to give the person that's being affected by this the opportunity to speak. But if the desire of the board is to make a motion on this particular one, I'll certainly entertain a motion.
I don't feel I have enough information.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the property that if you were traveling Route 3 south from Nashua and you get off the highway on Route 40, you would see it to your left? Is that where that is?
So if it's off of Dunstable Road, so.
It's off- oh, so it's
So
not,
if you look at that map that's currently up there, it does connect to a property in Westford, and
Yeah.
that property in Westford is commercial industrial, and is near the quarry.
Okay.
That
so it's not,
affecting
yeah,
Westford.
okay. I was thinking it was the buildings off of Route 40.
No.
No, okay.
So, do I have a motion, or do we want to hold off on this one until next week?
If it's, I would wait till next week, but
Okay. Yeah, so we'll take no action tonight on that. We won't want to table it, because if it's on the table, it dies on the table if we don't take action on it, so. That ends our recommendations except for that one. Let's, next on the agenda. I believe we had a discussion of the process, the additional meetings, and the preparation of the book for town meeting. So we'll start. I'll start getting the letter together, and Pam will start working on the book. Obviously, we won't have it until we've taken the final vote next Thursday, but it'll be just that one article. So we should be able to go into pretty quickly into final version, just with that one adjustment. So if you want to circulate, Pam, the book without that one article, and then everyone can take a look at it. For just the same as with the special warrant, I'd ask that people, if they had a particular position on something, that they give me a quick excerpt as to why. Typical process, absent how we're handling other things, is provide me if you feel very strongly about your position and you want to attribute your comments. You're certainly allowed and willing to include that and do so. I typically try to incorporate into one cohesive discussion, and so that I won't reference certain people in the way they voted. I'll just say, these members and voted this way, and these members voted this way because of X, Y, Z, based upon our discussions this evening, and we'll circulate and review and then publish for final publication. Pam, just to remind us, we need to really have that done by the Monday following next week, not next Monday, the Monday after.
Yeah, I
October
think it
3rd,
was
4th.
Yeah, the 4th is what came.
Third is Monday.
3rd. Oh, Monday's the 3rd, and that's the special town meeting.
Right.
Yeah. So for
I think it was the 4.
it was I think it was the 4th, we need to have the letter done and get it off to publication, because your special session with town manager session's on the 12th, is it? Yes. Paul? Okay, perfect. So, and those are resuming back in the North Town Hall, and it'll be, so I do recommend any town meeting representatives that are watching that haven't done in the past, is a great opportunity to review ahead of time and answer questions that you might have regarding these articles. We will intend to try to, to the greatest extent possible, have our books ready and available at that evening so people can review and have them to go through and discuss, pick them up that evening. All right, so that's it. We'll be, I'll put together an agenda, and we'll be here next Thursday evening. Hopefully it'll be a quick discussion. And then we'll go from there to special town meeting, and then town meeting and special town meeting, if that makes sense. Any public comment? Seeing none in the Zoom room. Sorry, Anita, do you have a comment? Oh, no, you're just waving by. Okay, just making sure. Any press questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.